Chapter 435. Just after looking at Lu Qinyue's state, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but shake her head. Logically speaking, both of them were at the mysterious Ian late stage. Even if Lu Qinyue's combat experience couldn't be compared with the other party, relying on the level of martial arts, Lu Qinyue shouldn't be forced to retreat step by step without any chance to fight back. However, Lu Qinyue had no power to fight back in the face of the other party's attack. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly felt that with Lu Qinyue's psychological endurance, it was more appropriate to directly become an alchemist. Compared with a cultivator and an alchemist, Lu Qinyue obviously had a better future as an alchemist. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang appeared beside Lu Qinyue. Seeing the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang, Lu Qinyue couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, but there was also a bit of embarrassment on her pretty face. The last time Yihu Cheng and the others appeared, it was also Bailey Hongzhuang who came to help her after she had defeated her opponent. Speaking of which, her strength was higher than Bailey Hongzhuang, but now she needed Bailey Hongzhuang to help her. She was really ashamed. If she had a choice, she didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to help her. After all, as a proud woman, she had a certain self-esteem in her heart. However, reality was reality. She didn't know why she became like this when she fought with others. Yi Zheng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, who suddenly appeared in front of him, and a touch of covetousness appeared in his eyes. I didn't expect that Yi Zheng's luck was really good. After dealing with a beauty, I didn't expect another beauty to come now. Hearing the flirting in Yi Zheng's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's pretty face was covered with a touch of frost. She hated this kind of man the most. Your strength is only at the mysterious Ian middle stage, a bit weaker than Lu Qinyue. Now you dare to take the initiative to come to me. Could it be that you like me? Lu Qinyue looked helplessly at Bailey Hongzhuang. She was really annoyed by Yi Zheng's words. Yi Zheng was a little proud. He liked to tease beauties. Whether it was Lu Qinyue or the Bailey Hongzhuang in front of him, they were both rare beauties. They were not comparable to those women among the mercenaries. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into an enchanting smile. In an instant, she looked so charming that Yi Zheng couldn't help but be stunned. However, what Bailey Hongzhuang said next made Yi Zheng's face turn extremely ugly. Why don't you take a look at yourself? I feel disgusted just by looking at you. Yi Zheng's expression changed, but on second thought, he smiled again. Little chilly, I like it too. Idiot. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't be bothered to pay attention to this guy. This kind of brainless guy didn't have much strength. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang raised her sword and stabbed at Yi Zheng without hesitation. Beauty, you really have guts. You actually dared to attack me first. Yi Zheng's lips curled into a faint smile. He obviously didn't take Bailey Hongzhuang's attack seriously. If he saw how his mysterious Ian middle stage companion died in the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang, he wouldn't underestimate her like this anymore. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't mind Yi Zheng underestimating her. She never cared about the other party underestimating her, because this way, she could save more energy. Storm Break. Chapter 436. Feeling the energy of Storm Break, Yi Zheng's expression changed a little. Judging from the energy fluctuation of this martial skill, it was obviously not a low-grade yellow rank martial skill. Cloud Splitting Slash. The origin energy in Yi Zheng's body quickly surged, and a bright sword light burst out from the sharp blade, dazzling everyone's eyes. The moment the Cloud Splitting Slash was released, it collided with Storm Break. In an instant, smoke and dust flew everywhere, and yellow sand filled the sky, blocking everyone's vision. Yi Zheng looked at the Cloud Splitting Slash he released, and a smug light appeared in his eyes. Although his Cloud Splitting Slash was a low-grade yellow rank martial skill, he had been practicing it for a long time, and the execution of the Cloud Splitting Slash had long been perfected. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang's martial skill level was stronger than his cultivation was also stronger than Bailey Hongzhuang's. Therefore, the winner of this round of competition would definitely be him. With your strength, you're not my opponent at all. Yi Zheng's lips curled up into a sneer, and he looked proudly at Lu Qinyue, whose beautiful face had turned pale and an indescribable sense of pride arose in his heart. Hearing Yi Zheng's words, Lu Qinyue's face turned pale. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang was seriously injured when fighting with Yi Zheng, or even died? Little beauty, no one will come to save you now. If you beg me, perhaps I can agree to it. Yi Zheng walked towards Lu Qinyue with a smug face. Compared to the difficult Bailey Hongzhuang, this powerless Lu Qinyue gave him greater pleasure. You're dreaming, Lu Qinyue said coldly, but that slightly trembling voice revealed her lack of confidence. Suddenly, Lu Qinyue's expression changed because she discovered that in the smoke and dust, Bailey Hongzhuang's figure gradually appeared, and her figure was clearly behind Yi Zheng. A soft sound rang out, and Yi Zheng's eyes were filled with shock and even more disbelief. He slowly lowered his head to look at his chest, where the blood-stained sword tip was revealed, and at the same time, an intense pain spread. Bailey Hongzhuang mercilessly pulled back her sword. This guy was happy too early. Yi Zheng turned his head in a daze. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's unscathed appearance, his whole person was completely stunned. Scum like you should go to hell as soon as possible, lest you harm others. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Yi Zheng coldly and left without mercy. It was as if she really felt disgusted just by looking at Yi Zheng. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's clean and nimble back, Lu Qinyue's heart was also endlessly shocked. She finally understood why, after being rejected by Bailey Hongzhuang, the two teachers still insisted on recruiting Bailey Hongzhuang into the academy. Bailey Hongzhuang's strength is really not weak. Lu Huaiyan's eyes were filled with admiration. Bailey Hongzhuang was decisive and did not hesitate to kill. It was really rare. Logically speaking, with Bailey Hongzhuang's age, she would not be able to do this, but with Bailey Hongzhuang, these problems could not be seen at all. Not only that, even during the battle, she was very calm and completely displayed her strength. Fu Hongbao's eyes flashed with wisdom and intelligence. In comparison, Lu Qinyue's ability to adapt when facing the enemy is much worse. Chapter 437. A gratified smile slowly appeared on Lu Huaiyan's mouth. As a mentor, he was very pleased to see his students' outstanding performance. Bailey Hongzhuang's psychological quality is very strong, just like the first time we saw her surrounded by the Hell Wolves in the royal hunting competition. That kind of calmness is something that even a cultivator with rich combat experience may not be able to achieve. Yes, Bailey Hongzhuang is indeed a rare combat genius. Fu Hongbao's mouth also showed a smile. Although Bailey Hongzhuang's current strength was not strong enough, it was only a matter of time. The next moment, Fu Hongbao's eyes fell on Di Beichun. Not only Bailey Hongzhuang, but Di Beichun is also such a genius. Lu Huaiyan and Fu Hongbo looked at each other, both of them sighing in their hearts. The two of them are really worthy of being husband and wife. If the people of Fengbo country saw the current Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun, they would not dare to associate them with the general's first miss and the crippled Prince Chun. After seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had dealt with the trouble in her hands, Di Beichun directly sent Zhao Yihan flying with a slap, then walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. Wifey, your strength is good. His starry eyes flashed with appreciation. During his absence, Bailey Hongzhuang's strength had improved a lot. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichun with deep meaning. Compared with you, my strength is still far worse. With the improvement of her strength, she found that she could not judge Di Beichun's strength at all. It could be seen that the gap between the two of them was not ordinary. Di Beichun smiled. Wifey, what do you plan to do next? Since it is a problem, then it should be solved as soon as possible. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. After Zhao Yihan was sent flying by Di Beichun's slap, his face quickly turned pale. Di Beichun's slap seemed simple, but the power was very strong. He only felt a burning pain in his internal organs. Obviously, he had suffered serious internal injuries. At this time, he found that the mercenary group had lost 2 members, and these 2 members were mysterious Ian late-stage experts. Although the Raging Inferno mercenary group had members with such cultivation, the fall of one was a huge loss. He did not expect that two would fall directly. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun, who were leisurely strolling on the other side, he suddenly found that the situation where victory was in his grasp had been broken. Just as he was about to use his spirit qi, Zhao Yihan felt a piercing pain in his body. Obviously, Di Beichun's slap was simply a hidden mystery. He was afraid that he would not be able to use his power for a few hours. Xia Jiqing and the others who were fighting saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun being so powerful. Their morale suddenly rose, and the speed of their attacks became a bit faster. On the contrary, the mercenaries of the raging Inferno mercenary group could not help but have a trace of fear in their hearts. Even the second leader had been seriously injured. As long as Di Beichun made a move, they were afraid that they would not be able to hold on. Bang! As Dong Fengyu beheaded a cultivator, Zhao Yihan's face was ugly to the extreme. "Stop!" Zhao Yihan suddenly shouted. Hearing Zhao Yihan's words, the mercenaries of the raging Inferno mercenary group retreated to Zhao Yihan's side. Chapter 438. Leader Zhao Air, what are you doing? Yihu Qing asked. Zhao Yihan's heart was also struggling. He had promised Yihu Qing to deal with Gong Shaoqing and the others, but he had never thought that Gong Shaoqing and the others would be so strong. Their 16 people had besieged them, but 4 of them had fallen. They were already on the verge of defeat. If they continued to fight, they would only suffer more losses. The loss of 3 mysterious late-stage cultivators was already an unbearable loss. If they continued to fight, they were likely to be wiped out. At that time, it would be too late for regrets. Yihu Qing was a mysterious heaven middle stage cultivator. He naturally wanted to recruit him into the Raging Flames mercenary group, but the defeat had already taken place. The result was impossible to change. If he let everyone continue to fight, it would undoubtedly be sending his brothers to their deaths. Brother Yi, let's withdraw for today, Zhao Yihan said. Their estimation was wrong. Before this, he only thought that Gong Shaoqing was the strongest cultivator in the group. As long as Yihu Qing delayed Gong Shaoqing, they would win without a doubt. After fighting, he found that the strongest was not Gong Shaoqing, but Di Beichun. Even after fighting with Di Beichun for a long time, he still couldn't figure out Di Beichun's true strength. Obviously, when Di Beichun existed in this team, they had already lost. Why? Yu Qing asked unwillingly. He had come this far with great difficulty. How could he give up so easily? We will go back and think about it. Zhao Yihan's eyes were dignified and serious. They couldn't succeed today, but as long as they went back and thought about it, there was a chance of success. Gong Shaoqing and the others looked at Zhao Yihan and the others coldly. Zhao Yihan's reaction was indeed beyond their expectations, but also made them feel relieved. Yihu Qing saw that Zhao Yihan had made up his mind. Although he was very unwilling, he had no choice. After all, it was impossible for him to be the opponent of Gong Shaoqing and the others. Seeing Yihu Qing agree, Zhao Yihan was also relieved and immediately waved his hand. Let's go. The cultivators of the Vicious Flames mercenary group had long been thinking of retreating, and when they heard Zhao Yihan's order, they quickly retreated. That speed was much faster than the speed at which they had rushed up. Aren't we going to chase? Xia Jiqing saw that everyone was not moving and couldn't help but ask. Gong Shaoqing shook his head. There's so many of them fleeing together. There's no point in us chasing after them. Even if they caught up now, they would only be able to kill 1 or 2 practitioners of the Vicious Fire mercenary group. What was the point? Let's adjust our condition and continue our journey to the Miasma Forest, Bailey Hongzhuang said. Everyone nodded. The Miasma Forest was the most important goal of their trip. From the expression on Yihu Qing's face when he left, I don't think they will give up so easily. Everyone should be more careful in the coming days. They can come to trouble us at any time, Di Beichun reminded them. Although he didn't know what had happened between Yihu Qing, Gong Shaoqing, and Lu Qinyu, based on his experience, Yihu Qing and Gong Shaoqing would fight to the death. In other words, as long as Yihu Qing did not die, the conflict between him and Gong Shaoqing would not end. Chapter 439. Yihu Qing's departure was only for the sake of a long-term plan. but now they had no other choice. Unless they chased them all the way to the Vicious Flames mercenary group's lair, but now they had to go to the miasma forest, so there was no time. Therefore, they could only take one step at a time, and after exploring the secrets of the miasma forest, they would come back to solve this problem. Looking at the fallen corpses on the ground, everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun, and their eyes couldn't help but change a bit. They all understood that the reason why the Vicious Flames mercenary group left was entirely because of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun. Otherwise, this fierce battle wouldn't have ended in a short period of time. At this moment, everyone couldn't help but feel that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were really not an ordinary match. Both of them were evildoers. The smell of blood here is easy to attract monster beasts. I think we should go first and find a suitable place to rest. What do you think? Dong Fongyu's eyes were full of concern, and he asked for everyone's opinion. Everyone nodded. Monster beasts were most sensitive to the smell of blood, so this place was not suitable for them to stay for a long time. Immediately afterward, everyone quickly organized the team and set off again in the direction of the miasma forest. After Hu Chung left with Zhao, Han, and the others, his face was filled with unwillingness and resentment. For Zhao, Han's decision, he couldn't say that it was wrong. He could only say that his own strength was not strong enough. If he could deal with Di Beichun, then today's situation would not have become like this. After leaving for some distance, he found that Gong Shaoqing and the others did not show any signs of catching up. So, Hu Chung stopped. Leader Zhao, thank you for your favor. I will take my leave first. Hu Chung cupped his fists. Seeing that Hu Chung was ready to leave, Zhao Han quickly said, Brother, wait. Hu Chung raised his eyes, his handsome face showing helplessness and determination. Leader Zhao, I will find a way to deal with Gong Shaoqing. I will remember your friendship. If I succeed, I will come to the Vicious Flames mercenary group. Of course, if the Vicious Flames mercenary group needs me at that time. Zhao Han patted Han's shoulder. Brother, what are you talking about? Since I promised to help you, I naturally won't go back on my words. Hearing this, a glimmer of hope appeared in Hu Cheng's eyes. He couldn't help but ask, Really? Are you really willing to continue helping me? Zhao Han nodded. Naturally, it's true. Be patient and listen to me. Hu Cheng's eyes flashed as he looked at Zhao Han, putting away his previous determined attitude. After all, it would be too difficult for him to kill Gong Shaoqing with his strength alone. Just now, you also saw the strength of Gong Shaoqing and the others. If we really fight, our strength is not enough. But if we go back to find people now, I'm afraid it will be too late. Hu Cheng nodded in agreement. Even if the base of the Vicious Flames mercenary group was not far from here, it would still take them a day to get back. By the time they came back, Di Beichun and the others would have already disappeared. Then what should we do? Hu Cheng frowned. So, this time, he had no chance at all. Chapter 440. Hu Cheng listened to Zhao Han's plan, and the more he listened, the brighter his eyes became. It turned out that the Vicious Flames mercenary group had a special liquid that was colorless and tasteless, and others could not detect it. This liquid had a magical effect, which was to attract the attention of monsters. If the opponent was deep in the Monster Beast Mountain range, this was simply a nightmare. It was precisely because of the existence of this liquid that the Vicious Flames mercenary group was able to rise in such a short time, and even other mercenary groups did not dare to touch them, because this liquid was simply impossible to guard against. Previously, in order to prevent any accidents, Zhao Han had arranged for the mercenaries to smear this liquid on Gong Shaoqing and the others. So, Gong Shaoqing and the others will be frequently attacked by monsters. Hu Cheng's words could not hide his excitement. This was simply good news for him. He did not expect Zhao Han to have such foresight. There was a silver lining at the end of the tunnel, which referred to his current situation. Zhao Han smiled and nodded. Yes, they will be frequently attacked by monsters during the day. As a result, their consumption will be huge, and their combat effectiveness will be greatly weakened. Not only that, The night is the time when monsters are most active. As they go deeper into the Luo Yun mountain range, I believe that they will be besieged by monsters at night. We will wait patiently, and it is best to appear when they are exhausted. At that time, we will undoubtedly win. Ihu Chung nodded again and again, his face full of admiration. Captain Zhao Yi, you are really wise. Since we have come out, we naturally need to make more preparations. Zhao Yihan waved his hand, and his face suddenly became gloomy. Our brothers of the Vicious Flames mercenary group cannot die in vain. Listening to this, Ihu Cheng's eyes became even more ruthless. Previously, he only hated Gong Shaoqing and Lu Qinyu, but now he hated Bailey Hongzhuang as well. If it were not for Bailey Hongzhuang, as early as last time, his plan would have succeeded, and this time it was because of Bailey Hongzhuang. It was really hateful. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others gradually moved towards the miasma forest according to the route described on the map. The miasma forest was located at the center of the falling cloud mountain range. Although it was still quite a distance away from the center, the strength of the demon beasts in the miasma forest was already extremely powerful. After killing another demonic beast, Cui Haoyan neatly took out the demonic crystal and threw it to Baisher in Bailey Hongzhuang's arms. In this short period of time, everyone in the team already knew that Baisher was a demonic beast that loved to eat demonic crystals. Although he didn't understand why Baisher was able to swallow the demon crystal at such a young age, since Bailey Hongzhuang didn't object, there was naturally no problem. At this moment, everyone understood the reason why Bailey Hongzhuang bought the demonic crystals. With such a little guy around, the consumption of demonic crystals was extremely fast. Cui Haoyan had always been very grateful to Bailey Hongzhuang for saving his life, so he would always give the demon crystals to Baisher after obtaining them. White Lion excitedly caught the demon crystal. It loved coming to the falling cloud mountain range the most. In its eyes, this place was filled with demon crystals. Chapter 441. Listening to Xia Jiqing's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also frowned. Not for anything else, but because the frequency of the monsters' attacks today was too high. Yesterday, only a few monsters appeared all day long. Xia Ti and the others had only been out for an hour, but the number of monsters that appeared was already more than yesterday. Although after entering the depths of the mountains, the frequency of monsters appearing would indeed increase slightly, the frequency was too exaggerated. They had been here before, but the number of monsters was far from comparable to the number now. It's a bit strange that so many monsters suddenly appeared. Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes flashed as she pondered. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered over the reason. If something was abnormal, there must be a demon. She had an intuition that this matter was not as simple as they thought. Master, when you were fighting with the mercenaries of the Vicious Flames mercenary group, I found a very strange thing, Xiao Bai suddenly said. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. What strange thing? I found that they were very keen on touching your clothes when they were fighting with you. Xiao Bai's voice was also full of doubts. Previously, because it could not make a move, it could only watch everyone fight. In the process of watching, it noticed this. Yes, Master, I also found it. Xiao He nodded. Clothes? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows slightly frowned. It was reasonable to say that in this kind of fight, most of the time, swords and sabers clashed. Why would the other party touch the clothes? She believed that Xiao He and Xiao Bai's vision would never be wrong. Thinking back, when the two cultivators first fought with her, they were fighting in close combat and did touch her clothes. Suddenly, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed, and she faintly guessed a possibility. Could it be that they left some kind of special substance on us? Special substance? Xiao He and Xiao Bai looked at each other. They did not know what their master was referring to. As a doctor, Bailey Hongzhuang was very sensitive to this kind of thing. There were many colorless and tasteless poisons in this world that could kill people. She had a lot of these methods. Since she had them, then the Raging Flames mercenary group might also have them. Di Baichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's constantly changing expression and asked softly, Wife, have you found anything? Bailey Hongzhuang looked up at Di Beichen. I have some clues, but I'm not sure. Suddenly, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a sly smile. If you want to verify if what I said is accurate, I need you to do me a favor. Oh, Di Beichen's handsome eyebrows slightly raised, his deep and bright eyes rippling with a doting smile. Since my wife needs your husband will naturally not refuse. You are the strongest, so it's the most convenient. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and told Di Beichen her thoughts. You mean that our bodies may have been smeared with some kind of special substance by the Raging Flames mercenary group's cultivators, so it attracted the attacks of so many demonic beasts. That's right. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Don't you think that the frequency of demonic beasts appearing is too exaggerated? Chapter 442. The next moment, Di Beichen's figure suddenly moved forward and disappeared from everyone's sight. Seeing Di Beichen suddenly leave, everyone's eyes could not help but have a touch of doubt. Hongzhuang, why did Di Beichen suddenly leave? Xia Jiqing stepped forward to Bailey Hongzhuang's side and asked doubtfully. When Xia Jiqing asked this question, Gong Shaoqing and the others also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. They only noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen exchanged a few words. Then Di Beichen suddenly left, which was a bit strange. Now we are in the depths of the Luo Yun Mountains. It is very dangerous for Di Beichen to leave alone. Bai Junyu frowned. His sunny and handsome face showed a little worry. You shouldn't have quarreled, right? As soon as these words came out, everyone's eyes became strange. Since Di Beichen came to Kinglan College, they felt that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had a tacit understanding. At the same time, they also found that Di Beichen was very considerate to Bailey Hongzhuang, but Bailey Hongzhuang did not seem to have any special feelings for Di Beichen. Contradictions between husband and wife were common things. Maybe now the two of them had a conflict, so Di Beichen left. Bailey Hongzhuang saw that everyone seemed to think that this was a fact, and couldn't help but feel a little dumbfounded. You think too much. I just asked Di Beichen to help me do a test. Bailey Hongzhuang explained. Test? Bai Junyu's eyes widened. What test? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. When he comes back, you will know. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's answer, everyone was relieved. The matters between husband and wife could be said to be simple or complicated. If there was a conflict at this time, it would be troublesome. In any case, it's really dangerous for Di Beichen to leave alone. Do you need her help? Cui Haoyan's handsome eyes were filled with concern. Even though they weren't weak, once they encountered a powerful demonic beast, they didn't have absolute confidence that they could escape successfully. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand. He'll be back soon. Don't worry. With Di Beichen's strength, he believed that the nearby demonic beasts would not pose a threat to him. If this little bit of difficulty stumped him, then how could he become the leader of Top Force? As the group continued on their way, Gong Shaoqing and Dongfang Yu looked at each other. Both of their eyes flashed with astonishment. Others didn't notice, but they did notice the speed at which Di Beichen left. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared before their eyes. This speed was not something an ordinary person could compare to. Even the two of them could not reach such a speed. This Di Beichen was really a mystery. After half an hour, Di Beichen once again appeared in front of everyone. His handsome face was still indifferent and elegant. He didn't show the slightest bit of embarrassment. From his body, there were no traces of a struggle with demonic beasts. Wife, I'm back. Di Beichen's lips were slightly raised. His eyes were as bright as stars, reflecting Bailey Hongzhuang's figure. It was as if his heart and eyes only had Bailey Hongzhuang. Xia Jiqing and Zhang Yinfeng both looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with deep meaning. Di Beichen was really good to Bailey Hongzhuang. No matter when or where, the first person he thought of was Bailey Hongzhuang. This alone was enough to make them envious. Chapter 443. Di Beichen squinted his eyes. His handsome and extraordinary face showed a little sadness. Wifey only cares about the results. You don't care about me at all. Your husband is very sad. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes changed a bit. Although she knew that the sadness on the guy's face was fake, it seemed that he was really going too far. Then, you didn't get hurt when you were experimenting, right? Bailey Hongzhuang asked softly with a somewhat unnatural face. Di Beichen's face instantly showed a bright and charming smile. Wifey is so concerned about me. Your husband is very touched. With your husband's skills, naturally there would be no danger, let alone injury. Bailey Hongzhuang really didn't want to talk to this guy anymore. He was completely teasing her, okay? Furthermore, what was with that intimate and proud look on his face? Xia Jiqing looked at the interaction between Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen, and the corners of her mouth couldn't help but overflow with a smile. Di Beichen was really too interesting. Usually, no matter who Hongzhuang met, she would have a look of indifference, but after meeting Di Beichen, she couldn't handle it. The so-called everything has its vanquisher. A natural pair should be like this, right? What's more, Di Beichen's conditions were very outstanding. Even if the whole school already knew that he was married, she still saw a female student confessing to Di Beichen. She found that Di Beichen's attitude towards Bailey Hongzhuang was completely different from his attitude towards other women. In the face of other women's confessions, Di Beichen's face was extremely indifferent from beginning to end, never showing a trace of a smile. Even his rejection was crisp and neat. He was simply too lazy to say anything. However, in front of Hongzhuang, Di Beichen became thick-skinned and shamelessly stuck to her. It was because of this that she felt that Di Beichen and Hongzhuang were very compatible. With Hongzhuang's outstanding qualities, if the other party didn't treat Hongzhuang wholeheartedly, wouldn't it be a waste? When Xia Jiqing chuckled, Bai Junyu's face also showed a smile. Xia Jiqing blinked at Bai Junyu. She thought that both Bai Junyu and her were interested because of the way Hongzhuang and Di Beichen got along. But she didn't know that the reason why Bai Junyu laughed was entirely because of her. Can you tell me the results of the test now? Bailey Hongzhuang sounded helpless. She realized that she had no way to deal with Di Beichen. Di Beichen nodded. He only felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's helpless look when facing him was extremely cute. His wife was always stubborn on the surface, but she was very kind in her heart. Just as you expected, our clothes have been tampered with. Di Beichen put away his joking attitude, and there was a trace of seriousness and rigor. According to Bailey Hongzhuang, after he wore his own clothes and went to the front, he found that many monsters appeared and attacked him. According to his experience of walking in the mountains, he had tried his best to avoid these monsters, but the monsters seemed to know where he was. No matter where he went, the monsters could always catch up. Then he changed his clothes and threw the original clothes into his chinquin bag, and those monsters never appeared. Obviously, the problem was with the clothes. Chapter 444. If that's the case, they should be not far from us. Di Beichen's mouth evoked a deep, evil smile. His judgment was correct. Yi Huqing and the others would not be willing to leave like this. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. The facts should be as they expected. I believe they must be waiting for us to be exhausted before they appear. Now that they are a certain distance away from us, it will be difficult for us to find them. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with wisdom. We can only wait for them to come to us. Di Beichen's lips curved slightly. His deep and bright black eyes were full of appreciation. His wife was really smart. If Bailey Hongzhuang hadn't thought of the problem with their clothes, they would have really fallen into the trap. After getting Di Beichen's affirmation, Bailey Hongzhuang called out to everyone and slowly told them her thoughts. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone's faces were filled with astonishment. The reason why we have been attacked by the monster beasts is because our clothes have been tampered with. Cui Haoyan's face was full of shock. Before this, they didn't find any abnormalities with their clothes at all. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly, her beautiful face flashing with a serious light. Previously, I asked Di Beichen to test whether my thoughts were true or false. Later, it turned out that my thoughts were correct. Don't you think the appearance of the monster beast today is too strange? With just a simple sentence, everyone believed Bailey Hongzhuang's words. You're right. I have been to the Luo Yin mountain range many times, but this is the first time I've been besieged by so many monster beasts. Cui Haoyan responded. In my opinion, it's better to be safe than sorry. Let's change our clothes. Dong Fangyu's voice was warm and and confident. He believed that Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't speak without thinking. Since Bailey Hongzhuang had said so, then she must have confirmed the answer. I also believe in Hongzhuang's judgment. Xia Jiqing followed. Seeing that Dongfang Yu and the others believed in her without any hesitation, the smile on Bailey Hongzhuang's lips became gentler. Gong Shaoqing and the others looked at each other. They had no objections. Soon, everyone changed their clothes and headed towards the miasma forest again. As they hurried along, everyone was surprised to find that the frequency of the demonic beasts that had been disrupting their progress had decreased significantly. After everyone had the experience of avoiding some of the places where the demonic beasts lived, the number of demonic beasts they encountered could be counted on one's fingers. At this moment, no one doubted Bailey Hongzhuang's words anymore. Their bodies must have been tampered with by Yi Hu Cheng and the others. Hongzhuang, you are really amazing. You can even find out that our clothes have been tampered with. Lu Qinyue's eyes couldn't hide the admiration in them. She really admired Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang, I really admire you. Cui Haoyan gave her a thumbs up, his handsome face full of admiration. If Bailey Hongzhuang hadn't found the problem, they would still be fighting with the monster beasts. As a result, they didn't know how much time they would be delayed on the way. What's more, if they were exhausted and Yi Hu Cheng and the others suddenly appeared, then they would really want to cry, but have no tears. Chapter 445. Listening to everyone's praise, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and waved her hand. I'm just good at this. Hongzhuang, you are too modest. Zhang Yinfeng smiled. Since Bailey Hongzhuang had saved Cui Haoyan, Zhang Yinfeng was full of gratitude to Bailey Hongzhuang. When she first saw Bailey Hongzhuang stealing the limelight when she first came to Kanglan College, she also had some complaints in her heart. However, after she understood Bailey Hongzhuang's character, her original dissatisfaction had disappeared and was replaced by appreciation for Bailey Hongzhuang. For a real genius like Bailey Hongzhuang, there was no need to steal the limelight. She was already destined to be in the limelight. This also requires Di Beichen's experiment to confirm. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows slanted, and she looked at Di Beichen with a teasing smile. She did not like to steal the limelight. Di Beichen chuckled. His wife was very generous. In short, thanks to you, otherwise I would have been exhausted just by killing the monsters. Cui Haoyan shook his head helplessly. Previously, he was so nervous and alert to the appearance of the monsters anytime and anywhere. He was really tired, but in a short period of time, he felt extremely tired. If it had been a day, he was afraid that when Yi Hu Cheng and the others appeared, he would have no strength to resist. This Yi Hu Cheng and the people of the Vicious Flames mercenary group are really despicable. They can even think of this method. If it weren't for Hongzhuang and Di Beichen, we would have been unlucky. Xia Jiqing's face was full of anger. Inexplicably falling into a trap, no one would be happy. As soon as these words came out, Gong Shaoqing and the others' faces were covered with a layer of ice. They had never been good people to provoke. Since the other party had used such a method to deal with them, they could not let Yi Hu Cheng and the others get away with it. Suddenly, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes that were as deep as an ancient well flashed with a hint of cunning as she asked with a smile on her face. When Di Beichen saw the change in Bailey Hongzhuang's expression, he knew that his wife must have an idea. Just from the way Bailey Hongzhuang dealt with Bailey Yuyan, he already knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had many strange tricks up her sleeves. How about we give him a taste of his own medicine? Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. She never liked to be taken advantage of. If it weren't for Xiao He and Xiao by reminding her, she wouldn't have known what had happened. Just now, she had already studied it once. The medicinal liquid that the other party applied was colorless and odorless, and it was applied during the fight. It was indeed impossible to guard against. It seemed that the doctor who made this medicinal liquid was quite good. However, there were also two types of doctors. One was to help the world by learning medical skills to save people. The other was to use medical skills as a means of survival by developing all kinds of poisons and powders to achieve their goals. Obviously, the doctor who developed this medicinal liquid belonged to the second kind. The Vicious Flames mercenary group had this medicinal liquid. It was no wonder that they could obtain their current status in the mercenary group. The place where the mercenaries were most active was the mountain range. The thing that they needed to worry about the most in the mountain range was the monsters. Once the Vicious Flames mercenary group wanted to get rid of someone, as long as they took the opportunity to apply this medicinal liquid on the other party's body, then they didn't even need to do anything to make the other party stay in the mountain range forever. This method was really amazing. Chapter 446. Bailey Hongzhuang, do you have a way? Even Gong Shaoqing's iceberg face, after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, melted a bit, his calm eyes rippling a little. He had always disliked trouble. If he could ignore the problem, he was not willing to pay attention to it. However, Yihu Cheng's repeated appearance had aroused his anger. He was never afraid of Yihu Cheng. He just felt that it was troublesome and was too lazy to pay attention to him. However, Yihu Cheng obviously did not feel the same way. If he allowed Yihu Cheng to continue like this, there would be endless trouble in the future. It was better to take advantage of this opportunity to completely solve it. If their primary task was not to go to the miasma forest, as early as this morning, he would have directly rushed to kill Yihu Cheng. He would not have given him a chance to escape. Everyone's eyes were tightly locked on Bailey Hongzhuang. Their eyes were full of expectation. They had been attacked early in the morning, and then they had been plotted against. As special enrollment students of Tsanglan College, they had never suffered so much. Now that they heard that Bailey Hongzhuang had a way, they just wanted to retaliate against Yihu Cheng and the others. They wanted to let the other party know the price of offending them. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved slightly. I do have a way, but we need to find a place to rest early tonight because I need some time to prepare. Hearing this, everyone nodded without hesitation. As long as they could vent their anger, what did it matter if they wasted some time? It was not a big deal for them to rush back tomorrow. What's more, with the harassment of Yihu Cheng and the others, their speed would only be slowed down. It was better to solve this problem directly and then continue on their way. Seeing that everyone had the same idea, Bailey Hongzhuang went on to say, since they want to use the beast to deal with us, we will use the beast to deal with them. Everyone's eyes lit up. This was naturally the most labor-saving method. Hongzhuang, do you have a way to use the beasts? Xiaoji Qing's eyes flashed with curiosity, and she could not wait to ask. They made this kind of liquid. It just so happens that I have a powder with a similar effect. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Her beautiful face was filled with confidence. When it came to medicine and poison, she never admitted defeat. She had all kinds of strange poisons and all kinds of medicinal liquids. Fortunately, she always had the habit of collecting medicinal herbs. In her Chinquin bag, she just happened to have the medicinal herbs needed to make this kind of medicinal powder. But how are we going to get the powder on their bodies? Bai Junyu frowned. His handsome face was filled with puzzlement and worry. They were in the light, and the other party was in the dark. Just this point alone made them fall into a disadvantage. That's easy. They'll definitely come looking for us tonight. We just have to wait for them. Tonight, we will also use the golden cicada shell escape and let them have a taste of being besieged. As Bailey Hongzhuang spoke out her thoughts, everyone's eyes were filled with shock. Bai Junyu quivered. He recognized a fact. No matter who he offended, he should never offend Bailey Hongzhuang. Otherwise, he wouldn't know how he died. That's a great idea. Xiaoji Qing's face was filled with excitement. For Yihu Cheng and the Vicious Flames mercenary group, this group of disgusting guys, she had to be ruthless. There was no need to show mercy. This trick is really good. Cui Haoyan once again gave a thumbs up. He really admired Bailey Hongzhuang's brain and was even more glad that he was not Bailey Hongzhuang's opponent. Chapter 447. When night fell again, the entire Luo Yun mountain range fell into darkness. Dark clouds covered the moon, making tonight's night even darker than usual. Coupled with the cries of the surrounding monster beasts, a gloomy atmosphere was spreading. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were sitting under a tree and taking a nap. They didn't know when, but everyone had changed into the clothes they wore before. After a while, the monster beasts rushed over like cats smelling blood and began to attack Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. The crisp sound of weapons and the roars of the monster beasts were linked together. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' faces were full of depression. Damn it. Why are these monster beasts always pestering us? Damn it. Cui Haoyin stabbed a monster beast to death and cursed. Dong Fengyu's face was also full of dissatisfaction and fatigue. Since we met Yihu Cheng and the others, we have been unlucky. Today, we didn't rest at all. It's really hateful. I don't understand. How do these monster beasts know that we are here? Bailey Hongzhuang said helplessly. Not far away, Yihu Cheng looked at Gong Shaoqing and the others who were fighting with the monster beasts. His originally resentful face was now filled with excitement. Captain Zhao Air, this move of yours is too effective. Yihu Cheng looked at Zhao Yihan, his eyes full of excitement. Zhao Yihan chuckled. Judging from the monster beast corpses around them, they must have not rested all day. Even the speed of their attacks has slowed down a lot. Yihu Cheng looked for a moment and nodded with a grin. Yes, they will not think that all of this is our method. This time, I will definitely kill Gong Shaoqing. At this moment, Yihu Cheng's heart was full of confidence. For a long time, his strength had been comparable to Gong Shaoqing. Now that Gong Shaoqing was so tired, as long as he attacked, Gong Shaoqing would definitely be defeated. In a fight between cultivators of the same strength, as long as there was a slight difference, it could lead to failure. Zhao Yihan's eyes flashed with a cold light. I will also avenge the brothers who fell in their hands. Even he couldn't accept the loss of 3 mysterious Ian late-stage cultivators. But compared to Yihu Cheng, who was a mysterious heaven late-stage expert, this loss was still within the acceptable range. Now, he had completely placed this grudge on Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. In my opinion, they are not far from exhaustion. Let's make our move, Yihu Cheng said. He rubbed his palms together as if he couldn't wait to go out and fight Gong Shaoqing to the death. Hearing this, Zhao Yihan thought for a moment, then said, let's wait a little longer. Wait for them to deal with the monster beasts. Then we will appear. All right then. Yihu Cheng nodded. As long as he could kill Gong Shaoqing with his own hands, he would not mind waiting for another day. Master, they're here. Xiao Hei's voice rang in Bailey Hongzhuang's mind. They will make their move soon. I know. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a light of success. Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai's spiritual power was very strong, so when Yihu Cheng and the others approached, they were able to detect it. Cough. Bailey Hongzhuang pretended to cough, and suddenly, the eyes of Gong Shaoqing and the others changed a bit. Chapter 448. Bang! After Gong Shaoqing beheaded the last monster, everyone could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Finally, we got rid of these monsters. I'm exhausted. Bai Junyu sighed helplessly as he sat on the ground. He was so tired that he did not even want to move his fingers. Let's rest for a while. After a while, we will leave here and find a place to rest. Otherwise, the smell of blood here will easily attract other monsters. Gong Shaoqing reminded them. We know. Everyone responded tiredly. At this moment, an untimely voice rang out. I see that you are also very tired. It is better to rest here forever. Yihu Cheng's face was filled with a proud smile as he slowly approached Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. He was so happy. Since he was expelled from the college, he had never been so happy. Gong Shaoqing's face changed a bit as he looked gloomily at Yihu Cheng. Yihu Cheng, you dare to appear? I'll let you escape this morning, but this time it won't be so simple. Gong Shaoqing, don't pretend here. Yihu Cheng sneered. You have been besieged by monsters for a whole day. I'm afraid you are already exhausted. As soon as his voice fell, the faces of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others changed a bit as they looked at Yihu Cheng with surprise. Is today's matter your doing? Dong Fengyue asked. The anger in his words could not be concealed. Yes, I did it. Yihu Cheng proudly raised his chin and looked at Zhao Yihan on the other side. This is thanks to Zhao Er's good method. What do you think? Despicable. Xia Zhiqing cursed. Despicable? So what? Yihu Cheng stepped closer to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, while Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked around from time to time as they retreated step by step. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' completely different attitude from the morning, The mercenaries of the Vicious Flames Mercenary Corps also showed a happy smile. Every dog has its day. Tonight, the unlucky ones were the Tsang Lan College students. Begin. Zhao Yihan waved his hand. Tonight, we will avenge our grievances. The next moment, Yihu Cheng and the other members of the Vicious Flames mercenary group rushed towards Bailey Hongzhuang. Not only that, even Zhao Yihan himself rushed up. Today, he had suffered in the hands of Di Beichan. He must get it back. In the face of Yihu Cheng and the others' momentum, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others retreated step by step, as if they were afraid of the other party. Seeing this, Yihu Cheng and the others became even more complacent. They held their weapons and clamored to kill everyone. Suddenly, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other and then ran to the back with great tacit understanding. Yihu Cheng and the others naturally would not let Bailey Hongzhuang and the others escape. They quickly chased after them. At this moment, Gong Shaoqing punched out. Bang! Dust filled the air. Countless white powder mixed with the yellow sand confused the eyes of Yihu Cheng and the others. It even covered their bodies and hair. It was everywhere. Yihu Cheng and the others noticed that there was a small slope on the ground. When they rubbed their eyes clean, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had already fled. In the middle of the night, once Bailey Hongzhuang and the others fled, it would be very difficult to catch them. Chapter 449. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the others left for a while, they sat leisurely in the tree, looking relaxed and comfortable. Where was their previous tired state? Yihu Cheng and the others would never have thought that we would turn around a corner and end up behind them. Xia Zhiqing chuckled. When she thought of Yihu Cheng and the others' expressions, she felt funny. She was really curious about what kind of expression Yihu Cheng and the others would have when they found out that their tiredness was fake. Bailey Hongzhuang blinked. Wait and see. There will be a good show to watch in a while. No one noticed that in the dark night, two little guys, one black and one white, had quietly left for a while and finally returned to Bailey Hongzhuang's head. Yihu Cheng and the others chased in the direction Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had left, but they found that they could not find any trace of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Roar! Suddenly, a rough demonic beast roar rang out. Just from that roar alone, one could tell how powerful this demonic beast was. Roar! After the first monster beast roar sounded, one after another roar seemed to respond to the call. It was particularly terrifying in this silent night. After Gong Shaoqing and the others listened to the strange monster beast roar, their faces showed astonishment. What kind of monster beast is this? How can its roar be so terrifying? Xia Zhiqing turned around, and the admiration in her eyes was even stronger. Hongzhuang, your powder is too useful, right? How long has it been? It has attracted so many monster beasts. The powder did not work so quickly, but this is the habitat of the mysterious fire monster rock. I just helped them find some trouble. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged her shoulders, her expression innocent and pure, as if she had just done something as simple as this. However, Bai Junyu and the others could not help but shrink their necks. The mysterious fire monster rock was a monster beast that was stronger than a human cultivator at the mysterious Ian late stage. Just provoking one was already bad luck for Yihu Cheng and the others. Now that they had directly broken into the mysterious fire monster rock's base, they were simply looking for death. Whether it was Dongfang Yu or Gong Shaoqing, they were completely convinced by Bailey Hongzhuang at this moment. This kind of strange means they had never thought of it. Bai Junyu originally thought that Yihu Cheng was really despicable, but at this moment, he had some sympathy for Yihu Cheng and the others. Too miserable. It's really too miserable. Wifey is really smart. In this way, we don't even have to do anything. Di Beichan smiled and praised. Bailey Hongzhuang clapped her hands indifferently. We have been on the road for a whole day and are already very tired. If we continue to waste energy on Yihu Cheng and the others, wouldn't it be too bad? Everyone looked at the very natural expressions of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichan, mixed with the screams of Yihu Cheng and the others not far away, and the screams of fear as they fled, they could not help but feel that these two were really abnormal. As the screams were getting farther and farther away, everyone jumped down from the tree. Let's find another place to rest. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. We can finally have a good rest tonight. Xia Zhiqing was somewhat hesitant. Hongzhuang, will Yihu Cheng and the others be lucky enough to escape? Chapter 450. Listening to Di Beichen's words, Xia Zhiqing suddenly found that her question was somewhat superfluous. Bailey Hongzhuang even found the mysterious fire monster rock. How could she let Yihu Cheng and the others leave alive? Cui Haoyin patted Xia Zhiqing's shoulder and smiled. Even if Yihu Cheng and the others are lucky enough to escape the mysterious fire monster rock, don't forget that Bailey Hongzhuang's powder is still in effect. So that's how it is. Xia Zhiqing suddenly realized that Hongzhuang's work was really watertight. Not far away, Lu Huaiyin and Fu Hong both listened to the conversation between Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. The two of them also felt a chill on their backs. This kind of method, even they couldn't bear it. Yihu Cheng is unlucky to meet this girl. It's really bad luck. Lu Huaiyin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This kind of weird and bad method was really hard to guard against. You should be glad that you didn't meet a doctor opponent before. Fu Hongbo chuckled. Bailey Hongzhuang's methods today had really opened his eyes. That kind of powder, he would find a chance to get some. After all, sometimes when he didn't want to do it, this kind of powder was still very useful. But Lu Huayan's eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of doubt. How did Bailey Hongzhuang know that the nest of the mysterious fire monster rock was nearby? Hearing this, Fu Hongbo's expression also paused. This point, he really didn't understand. Hey, master, Xiao Bai and I are very efficient. Xiao Hei's eyes turned into crescents as he smiled. His expression revealed that he was asking for a reward. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. If Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai hadn't alarmed the mysterious fire monster rock, it was likely that today's matter wouldn't have gone so smoothly. After going back, you can eat as much as you want, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a lofty tone. As soon as these words came out, Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai were overjoyed. This was their ultimate goal. It was really worth their hard work. Baisher also used a small pause to poke Bailey Hongzhuang, indicating that he also helped in this matter. As a beast king, he was most sensitive to monsters. As long as he could sense the location of the monster's nest, he could determine it. It was precisely because of this that Bailey Hongzhuang chose that place to rest today. You too. Bailey Hongzhuang touched Baisher's head. Holding Baisher in the Luoyin mountain range was simply a big weapon. White Lion immediately narrowed its eyes in satisfaction. Its furry little face was filled with satisfaction. But was to the DB. To feed, but these three foodies but she. This was the advantage of being a foodie. That night, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others finally had a good night's rest. Without the harassment of Yihu Cheng and others, everyone felt very happy. Among everyone, Lu Qinyue was in the best mood. Since the incident, she couldn't sleep at night when she thought of Yihu Cheng. Especially after Yihu Cheng appeared last time, she was even more afraid that Yihu Cheng would appear in front of her from time to time. But now, she no longer needed to worry about this problem. Qinyue, Yihu Cheng won't appear again in the future. You don't have to worry. Gong Xiaoqing's cold voice was as cold as usual, but there was a bit of relaxation and satisfaction. It was as if he had unloaded a burden. Lu Qinyue smiled and nodded. Yes, I can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Chapter 451. Listening to Gong Xiaoqing's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others all understood what he meant. There were not many people who knew about this at the beginning, not to mention that there were not people who liked to gossip. This matter was completely stopped by them and would not spread out. What's more, now that Yihu Cheng was dead, this matter had obviously come to an end. Big Brother Gong, what do you mean? The joy in Lu Qinyue's eyes dissipated in an instant with Gong Xiaoqing's words. She was sensitive and immediately found the different meaning in Gong Xiaoqing's words. Gong Xiaoqing shook his head. Nothing, it's just that seeing that you no longer have psychological pressure, I feel a lot more at ease. However, this was a very normal sentence, but after Lu Qinyue heard it, her face became ugly. Her eyes, which were as gentle as water, rippled, and there was a faint trace of sadness spreading in her eyes, but she forcefully suppressed it and did not reveal it. Dongfang Yu, Cui Haoyin, Zhang Yunfeng, and Bailey Hongzhuang looked at each other. They all faintly understood the meaning of Gong Xiaoqing's words. For a long time, Lu Qingyue loved Gong Xiaoqing. This was a well-known thing, but Gong Xiaoqing's attitude towards Lu Qingyue was somewhat ambiguous. From Gong Xiaoqing's attitude, everyone could feel that Gong Xiaoqing did not like Lu Qingyue much, but because he wanted to protect Lu Qingyue, the relationship between the two was very close. At the beginning, Gong Xiaoqing felt that it was because of him that the matter between Lu Qingyue and Yi Hu Cheng happened, so he had always been protecting Lu Qingyue. Now that Yi Hu Cheng no longer existed, the things that Lu Qingyue was afraid of naturally did not exist. As a result, Gong Xiaoqing naturally did not have to protect Lu Qingyue like before. This was really drawing a clear line. Xia Jiqing and Bai Junyu looked at the crowd curiously. They did not know what had happened before, so naturally they did not understand what was going on with this strange atmosphere at the moment. Di Beichun was sitting indifferently, comfortably squinting in the sun, as if everything that was happening now had nothing to do with him. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang sat down beside Di Beichun. For this matter, even if they understood the whole story, they still didn't have the right to speak. They still pretended not to hear and handed this matter over to Gong Xiaoqing and Lu Qingyue to deal with it themselves. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's action, Cui Haoyin and the other two followed suit. This kind of emotional thing was the most difficult to explain. If they continued to stand there, it would only make the person involved feel awkward. In the next moment, Gong Xiaoqing and Lu Qingyue suddenly walked forward together and talked at a distance from the people in the bureau. Di Beichun turned his face to look at Bailey Hongzhuang, who had a comfortable expression on her face. His handsome eyes revealed a doting smile. "Wifey, are you very used to being with your husband now?" Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment. "Not bad." Di Beichun's smile widened a bit, and his right hand slowly grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang's small hand on the ground. It's not easy to find a person in this world who is pleasing to the eye and can get along well with you. Why don't you just be with your husband? Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang turned her eyes to look at the flawless and perfect face. The sun shone on his body, soft and warm. Chapter 452. Bailey Hongzhuang's red lips were slightly hooked, and her deep black eyes flashed with seriousness. Bailey Hongzhuang, never compromise. In her dictionary, there was no such thing as making do. Di Beichun's eyes stagnated for a moment, but soon the smile on his mouth rose again. "So, your husband still has to continue the long road of pursuing his wife." It was clearly a sigh, but when it came from Di Beichun's mouth, it seemed to be full of confidence. Bailey Hongzhuang tilted her head and looked at Di Beichun indifferently. The atmosphere suddenly became silent. Soon, Gong Xiaoqing and Lu Qingyue came back. Their expressions were as usual, as if nothing had happened. "It's getting late. Let's go," Gong Xiaoqing slowly said. Everyone nodded. The sudden appearance of Yi Hu Cheng and the others disrupted their plan. Now was indeed time to hurry. Bailey Hongzhuang stood up from the ground and was ready to follow the crowd. Just as everyone was leaving, Di Beichun grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang. The sudden force made Bailey Hongzhuang directly lean against the tree. Once again, the ambiguous posture was reproduced. Di Beichun's handsome face was close to Bailey Hongzhuang's ear, and the corners of his mouth rose. "Your husband also doesn't like to compromise. One day, my wife will be willing to marry me." When his voice fell, Di Beichun looked deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang and turned to follow the crowd. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the tall and straight figure in front of her, and a strange color flashed in her clear eyes. After everyone set foot on the journey again, everyone clearly felt that Lu Qingyue's mood was somewhat depressed. Usually, Lu Qingyue's mouth always had a shallow smile, but at this moment, it was as if dark clouds were shrouding her. Her watery eyes didn't have the slightest spirit, and a faint sense of sadness spread. Seeing this, everyone more or less understood the situation. It was truly a case of falling flowers, unrequited love. Without the harassment of Yihu Chung and the others, Bailey Hongzhuang's group progressed very quickly. After 3 days, they finally arrived at the location of the miasma forest. The closer they got to the miasma forest, the more cultivators appeared around them. Normally, it was rare to see so many people in the depths of the falling cloud mountain range. It could be seen how attractive the mystery of the miasma forest was to everyone. Wow, I didn't expect there to be so many people here. Xia Jiqing's face was full of amazement. They've already arrived. Wouldn't this task be taken by someone else? Looking at the posture of these cultivators, it was obvious that they had been here for some time. Bai Junyu chuckled. Do you think it's that easy to understand the secrets of the miasma forest? Miasma has always been dangerous. Looking at how they're trapped outside, I know that they must not have thought of a way to enter. Hearing this, Xia Jiqing's eyes lit up, and she finally understood. So that's how it is. Then we still have a chance. Master, this miasma is very strong. It's not easy to go in. Xiaohei couldn't help but sigh after seeing the miasma in front of them. Xiao Bai's eyes also showed a trace of worry. The scope of this miasma is very large. No wonder the mercenary trade union will give such a high reward. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes also fell on the miasma not far away. The whole forest was completely shrouded in miasma, and it was white. Chapter 453. Wow, the miasma in this miasma forest is too dense. So far, this is the first time I've seen such a dense miasma. Zhang Yunfeng's eyes were full of astonishment. Miasma had always been poisonous. The miasma she had seen before was only hazy, like the fog in the early morning. However, the miasma in front of her was so dense that she couldn't even see her fingers in front of her. She was afraid that her opponent wouldn't be able to see more than 1 meter in front of her. Gong Shaoqing and the others also had a dignified expression on their faces. Such a dense miasma, it's really unheard of. Let's first inquire about the situation from others. After understanding it, we'll make a plan. Dong Fangyu said in a deep voice. Everyone nodded. They believed that the cultivators who had already arrived already had a certain understanding of the situation. Only by understanding more would they be able to find a corresponding solution. As everyone slowly approached the miasma, the discussions of the surrounding cultivators gradually entered their ears. The density of this miasma is really too terrifying. Moreover, it's spreading outward every day. I don't know how far it will spread. Alas, the few guys who went in yesterday haven't made the slightest movement. I'm afraid they won't be able to return. This is really too strange. Previously, we could still hear sounds, but suddenly, there's no movement at all. It's as if they disappeared into thin air. In my opinion, this time the Mercenary Association made a mistake in their judgment. This mission is far more than just a blue mission. Everyone shook their heads and sighed. They were obviously very afraid of this miasma. Listening to these discussions, everyone's heart sank. It seemed that the power of this miasma was much stronger than they had imagined. Dong Fangyu didn't delay and directly walked into the crowd in front of him to inquire about the situation of the miasma. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others found a suitable place to rest nearby. Obviously, the situation inside the miasma wasn't something that could be understood in a short time. Not long after, Dong Fangyu walked back and told everyone what he had learned. From Dong Fangyu's narration, everyone had a certain understanding of the situation of the miasma. It turned out that as early as a few days ago, some people had already arrived at the miasma forest. They discovered that the miasma was spreading outward little by little. With each passing day, the area covered by the miasma would increase by a little. Not only that, everyone could hear the roars of demonic beasts from time to time. These roars were extremely powerful. Even the old mercenaries who often walked in the falling cloud mountain range had no idea what kind of demonic beast it was. During this period of time, many cultivators had mustered up their courage to enter, but after entering, there was no news at all. As the days grew longer and longer, everyone seemed to have tacitly agreed that he had perished. Now, everyone was a little afraid of the miasma that had appeared out of nowhere but they were a little unwilling to leave just like that. They could only wait quietly for news. This is the first time I've heard of a miasma that spreads every day. Cui Haoyin's eyes widened, and his face was full of disbelief. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also fell into silence. Such a strange situation was simply unheard of. In my opinion, we don't need a rush. Let's think of a way first, Gong Xiaoqing said. The current situation had clearly exceeded their expectations. Acting rashly was absolutely out of the question. There's no need to rush. Let's understand the situation first. Chapter 454. While the crowd was trying to understand the situation, Bailey Hongzhuang directly approached the miasma. She had seen many miasma in her past life, but this miasma was obviously much thicker than the one she had seen in the past. When the surrounding cultivators saw Bailey Hongzhuang approaching the miasma, astonishment appeared on their faces at the same time. "Miss, this miasma is poisonous. I advise you to stay away from it." A young man could not help but approach Bailey Hongzhuang after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's ravishing beauty. His words were filled with goodwill. It would be a pity if such a beauty were to die because of this miasma. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at the man next to her. The man was about 20 years old. He was handsome and dressed in luxurious clothes. Clearly, he was not an ordinary mercenary. He should be the son of an aristocratic family. "Thank you for the reminder." Bailey Hongzhuang's tone was calm and polite. Since the other party had kindly reminded her, there was no need for her to treat him coldly. Then, Bailey Hongzhuang directly took out a silver needle from her heaven-earth bag and tried to touch the miasma with it. "Master, what are you doing?" Xiao Hei's lively eyes darted around as she asked curiously. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. "I'm testing how toxic this miasma is and whether a person can enter it directly. This acupuncture technique is really amazing. You can test the toxicity of the miasma just like that," Xiaobai exclaimed. Baisher silently lay on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder, but his eyes were fixed on the miasma. To be more precise, he was staring deep into the miasma. "Master, I seem to sense a familiar aura in this miasma." Baisher's eyes flickered with a complicated light. He was clearly suspicious and uncertain. A sharp light flashed across Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes. She was slightly surprised. "Do you know what kind of demonic beast is in this miasma?" As a beast king, Baisher naturally belonged to the ranks of divine beasts. Demonic beasts were different from human cultivators. Demonic beasts had a very mystical power called inheritance. Even though Baisher had never seen a demonic beast of the same clan after he was born, his mother had passed on a lot of knowledge to Baisher when she had given birth to him. This included cultivation methods, as well as other information that Baisher needed to understand. As Baisher grew up, he would understand more and more about this inheritance. No one could take away the inheritance from his memories. Clearly, it was better than the protection methods humans had. Baisher shook his head. There was a look of helplessness on his young face. "I only feel that this aura is very familiar, but I can't be sure what kind of demonic beast it to be." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was not disappointed. She smiled and said, "It doesn't matter. Maybe you will be able to tell after hearing the roar of the wicked beast." Hu Junqing saw that Bailey Hongzhuang did not leave, but instead took out a silver needle to test the miasma, and his face was filled with doubt. "Miss, what are you doing?" Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the man beside her. There was a trace of impatience in her clear eyes. She did not like to be disturbed when she was busy. "I'm Hu Junqing. May I know your name?" Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang did not reply, Hu Junqing did not mind. As the saying goes, a fair lady is a gentleman's dream. For a rare beauty like Bailey Hongzhuang, it was normal for her to ignore others. Chapter 455. "Master, this fellow seems to have taken a liking to you." Xiao Hei's eyes sparkled with excitement, and she looked as if she wanted to see the world in chaos. There are so many senseless people like him in this world. Bailey Hongzhuang did not intend to pay any attention to Hu Junqing. She believed that this fellow would not bother her anymore after he had brought trouble upon himself. "Our young master is talking to you. How dare you ignore him?" The burly man beside Hu Junqing was displeased. Their young master had a strong family background. Who would dare to be rude to their young master? Hu Junqing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang meaningfully. He did not stop the bodyguard beside him and was rather pleased with himself. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's face instantly turned cold. No matter when, bodyguards who bullied others because of their master's power were extremely annoying. Get lost as far away as you can. Bailey Hongzhuang's cold voice did not contain a trace of warmth. She did not even look at Hu Junqing and the others. Her attitude, as if there was no one else around, was clearly the ultimate contempt. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude, the bodyguard and Hu Junqing's face turned ugly. Until now, no one had ever dared to tell them to get lost. Don't be ungrateful, the bodyguard warned. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. She was concentrating on studying the toxins of the miasma. These fellows who had suddenly appeared were really noisy. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to turn around and deal with this trouble, a pale golden figure appeared beside her and blocked in front of Hu Junqing. I told you to get lost as far as you can. Didn't you hear me? Di Beichen's black eyes flashed with a biting cold light. His tone was domineering and resolute, as if he was giving an order. He did not give anyone a chance to refuse. Hu Junqing looked at Di Beichen, who had suddenly appeared in front of him. He had wanted to threaten him, but when he saw Di Beichen's eyes, he could no longer speak. That pair of deep black eyes were filled with coldness and murderous intent. Just one look was enough to make him feel a sense of danger. Although this idea was inconceivable, it did exist. However, before Hu Junqing could stop the guard beside him, his words had already escaped his mouth. Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to our young master like that? I think you're courting death. The corners of Di Beichen's mouth curled up in an evil arc, but his eyes grew colder and colder. That killing intent was almost tangible, making people feel a fatal chill. When a surrounding crowd saw this scene, they were all waiting to see a good show. Over the past few days, they had been very depressed by this inexplicable miasma. It was rare to see something interesting, so everyone was very interested. Isn't that the young master of the Hu clan? I'm afraid this newcomer is in for a bad time. Yes, Hu Junqing's guards are not weak. I heard that the Hu clan is very interested in this miasma forest. A large number of cultivators from the Hu clan are rushing over. Alas, they've just arrived and already provoked the young master of the Hu clan. They're really unlucky. I'm afraid this man will be beaten up. The guard looked at Di Beichen with some pride. As a guard of the Hu clan, he had always been the one bullying others. Since when did others have the right to speak ruthlessly to him? I also think you're courting death. The arc of Di Beichen's mouth quietly froze. His eyes were dangerous and cold. In the next moment, the surrounding cultivators burst into a burst of exclamations. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them in astonishment and disbelief. Chapter 456. Too Violent. By Junyu sighed. Usually, he rarely saw Di Beichen make a move. He didn't expect Di Beichen to be so domineering and ruthless. Sure enough, he and Bailey Hongzhuang are a couple. It's too bloody. Cui Haoyan shook his head with a look of emotion. After staying with this group of perverts for a long time, he had become a lot calmer. Wow, it's really too cool. Xia Jiqing's face couldn't hide the excitement. She liked this kind of bloody and violent scene very much. Gong Shaoqing, Dong Fengyu, Lu Qinyue, and Zhang Yunfeng were standing in the same place. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were really troublesome people. The guard who had been shouting in front of Di Beichen had disappeared because Di Beichen's punch had directly made the guy unable to speak. Then, he kicked the guy into the miasma. No one heard the slightest sound. The guard was like the cultivator who had entered the miasma before. After entering, there was no movement. As for Hu Junqing and the other guard, they really did what Bailey Hongzhuang said. Roll as far as possible. Because after Di Beichen brought the two guys to the point where even their parents couldn't recognize them, he let the two guys roll away. That's right. Just roll. Now, Hu Junqing and the guard were rolling on the ground, but these two guys didn't even dare to say a word. More importantly, they didn't know how far to roll. If they didn't roll far enough, Di Beichen would help them roll even further. That would be terrible. Therefore, The unlucky Hu Junqing and the guard could only continue to roll. Di Beichun turned his face and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a smile. "Wife, do you feel a lot quieter?" Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a narrow smile. She was also amazed by Di Beichun's means. It seemed that Di Beichun's bad ideas were no less than hers. "Not bad." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "In that case, in order to prevent others from harassing wife again, I will accompany wife." After saying that, Di Beichun did not give Bailey Hongzhuang a chance to refuse. He directly accompanied Bailey Hongzhuang, like a good husband who is eager to protect his wife. The surrounding cultivators understood at this moment. They looked at Di Beichun in a new light and completely understood Di Beichun's approach. Bailey Hongzhuang was somewhat helpless. Di Beichun obviously wouldn't leave, but she felt that this wasn't bad. "Wife, how's your research going?" Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes staring at the silver needle that had turned black, Di Beichun asked. Previously, when Bailey Hongzhuang was treating him, he had already seen the magic of acupuncture. Since the silver needle had turned black, it proved that the miasma was poisonous. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes narrowed slightly, and her charming face was a little dignified. "The poison in the miasma is very strong. I'm afraid that the cultivators who went in earlier died directly from the poison. I think I need to study this poison. Otherwise, it's impossible to understand the situation in the miasma forest." Di Beichun nodded slightly. He had always admired Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills. Since the poison is so strong, it's a little unbelievable that there are demonic beasts living in it. Di Beichun pondered. Chapter 457. This miasma suddenly appeared recently. If the monsters want to adapt to this miasma, they will not succeed in a short period of time. Di Beichun's eyes flashed with a thoughtful light, and his wise appearance seemed to penetrate everything. "Your thoughts are the same as mine." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled tacitly. "In this way, the appearance of this miasma is even more strange and worth studying." Immediately afterward, Bailey Hongzhuang returned to the side of Xia Jiqing and the others and began to concentrate on studying the toxins. Judging from the richness of the miasma, unless they could enter the miasma, it was impossible to understand the situation inside. Xia Jiqing and the others looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's complicated process of studying the toxins, and their hearts had a sense of admiration. In fact, in the face of this miasma, they really had no way to deal with it. After Lu Huaiyin and Fu Hongbo understood the situation of the miasma forest, they no longer hid their bodies. At this time, there was no need to continue to hide their bodies. It was better to get along with everyone and enter the miasma. The toxins of this miasma are very strong. Even with my cultivation, I can't last long. Lu Huaiyin said his own judgment. As soon as these words came out, everyone's face could not help but change a bit. Even the mentors could not last long in a miasma, let alone them. It seems that the judgment of the mercenary trade union was really wrong this time. This task is definitely not just a blue-level task. Lu Huayan's eyes showed a bit of seriousness. After the monster tide, it suddenly became like this. It is a bit strange. I'm afraid there is something extraordinary here. Lu Huaiyin and Fu Hongbo looked at each other. This situation was somewhat similar to what they had heard of before. "It shouldn't be," Lu Huaiyin slowly said, and his heart already had a certain guess. Fu Hongbo nodded slightly. "It is possible." Both of their faces changed a bit. If things were really as they thought, then it would be a big deal. Xia Jiqing and the others looked at the two mentors doubtfully. They did not understand what the two mentors were talking about, but from the expressions of the two, they could understand that this miasma was not simple. "I didn't expect this kind of thing to appear here." Di Beichun leaned against the tree in a carefree manner with a meaningful smile on his face. Bailey Hongzhuang had just finished studying the poison on the silver needle when she heard Di Beichun's words. Her clear eyes were filled with curiosity. "You already know what this miasma is?" "If I'm not wrong, this miasma should be a sign of the appearance of an ancient ruin." Di Beichun had no intention of hiding anything from Bailey Hongzhuang. "Ancient ruins?" Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. She had also seen ancient ruins before, but she didn't know that ancient ruins would be accompanied by miasma when they appeared. The ancient ruins were buildings built by some experts. They left their lifetime wealth and inheritance in the ancient ruins, just to find a fated person to inherit their inheritance in the future. Usually, the experts who built ancient ruins were very powerful. After all, just building a ruin required a huge amount of energy. Ancient ruins were usually located underground or in a small world built by experts. Only when certain people or events triggered these ancient ruins would they reveal themselves. Chapter 458. Di Baichen nodded. He saw that Bailey Hongzhuang did not seem to know much about the ancient ruins, so he explained to Bailey Hongzhuang about the ancient ruins. Why is there miasma when the ancient ruins appear? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. This was what she did not understand the most. Hundreds of years ago, the Luo Yun mountain range produced an extremely strong miasma. At that time, almost no one dared to come to the Luo Yun mountain range. However, it gradually dissipated and became what it is today. I read in the history books that the miasma at that time was extremely terrifying. It was extremely poisonous and had an extremely wide range, just like the miasma in front of us. However, when I flipped through the history books, there was no record of the cause of the miasma's appearance. Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. She did not expect the Luo Yun mountain range to have such a history. It did not happen in the era she lived in. So, this ancient ruin is very likely to have been buried when the miasma was produced. Bailey Hongzhuang understood everything. If this was really the case, then they had undoubtedly discovered a huge treasure. A powerful cultivator who had built an ancient ruin must have passed down a rich inheritance. Regardless of whether it was cultivation techniques, martial skills, or weapons, they were all treasures. This kind of treasure was very rare in the past. The valuable ones belonged to various clans, while the ancient ruins belonged to the inheritance of ordinary cultivators. As long as they were lucky, they could also obtain treasures from it. Smart, Di Baichen praised. The miasma is still very strong now. Most cultivators are unable to enter it. I believe that many people are still unable to predict the real situation inside. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. If we go in directly, won't we be one step ahead? That's right, Di Baichen nodded. However, the miasma's poison is very terrifying. It won't be easy to enter it. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a confident smile. Leave the detoxification to me. Since they were fated to come across such a treasure, how could she not seize the opportunity? Detoxification was what she was best at. Since Di Baichen could guess that there were ancient ruins in the miasma, she believed that others might have thought of it as well. After all, the ancient era's ruins were treasures that even the cultivation aristocratic families couldn't overlook. Those old fellows were all experienced and knowledgeable. As long as they heard the slightest clue, they could roughly guess what was going on. They didn't have much time left. Bailey Hongzhuang no longer hesitated and immediately began to research how to concoct the antidote. She had already understood the characteristics of the miasma toxin from her earlier research. However, the most complicated part was the concoction of the antidote. This was because every difference in composition would lead to a different effect of the antidote pill. She needed to study it very carefully. After all, in the face of such miasma, they might lose their lives if they were not careful. Time passed slowly, and night fell once again. Everyone was ready to rest after eating their rations. However, when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang, their eyes were filled with admiration. From a day until now, Bailey Hongzhuang had put all her energy into researching the antidote pill. She was so focused that she didn't even have time to eat. Chapter 459. Everyone now understood why Bailey Hongzhuang was able to achieve such results in medical skills at such a young age. For a long time, they had thought that they were serious enough in their cultivation, but compared with Bailey Hongzhuang, they found that their so-called seriousness was nothing. When Bailey Hongzhuang was researching medical skills, she had reached a state where she forgot to eat and sleep, completely forgetting herself. Lu Qingyue's eyes were the deepest. She had never seen Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance in alchemy. She only felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was talented, so she could achieve such results. Now it seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang's talent was naturally not bad, but she worked harder. For a time, everyone seemed to have received a baptism, and there was a feeling of epiphany in their hearts. If they could reach the level of Bailey Hongzhuang in their cultivation, their strength would definitely improve a lot on the basis of their current foundation. Di Beichen's eyes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang's body. His wife had a different kind of charm, especially when she was so focused. This charm was even more fascinating. The next day, the sky gradually brightened. When everyone opened their eyes, they found that Bailey Hongzhuang was still in the same position as last night, studying the toxins, but from her constantly recording on the paper, they could see the results of her research last night. Oh my God, Hongzhuang is still studying. Did she not rest last night? Xia Jiqing was shocked. Bai Jinyu shook his head. He slept very deeply last night and did not notice this, but he felt that Bailey Hongzhuang most likely did not rest. Hongzhuang is working too hard. It's okay if she can't study it. Is she under too much pressure? Zhang Yunfeng's eyes showed a little worry. Such a concentrated research was extremely exhausting. Gong Xiaoqing waved his hand. Bailey Hongzhuang is not under a lot of pressure. She is just excited. Excited? Everyone was stunned. After studying for a day and night, she was still excited? Gong Xiaoqing nodded and did not explain. He just motioned everyone to look at Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. Everyone took a closer look and found that Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes seemed to be burning with a flame. Not only was there no sign of fatigue, on the contrary, she was very excited. Yes, Bailey Hongzhuang was now in a state of excitement. She was extremely interested in some toxins that she had never seen before, and she did not feel tired when studying them. The more challenging things were, the more she liked to do it. It was precisely because of this that she was able to learn such exquisite medical skills. Her body was filled with all kinds of strange poisons. Everyone was speechless. This was too abnormal. Abnormal was abnormal. Ordinary people, they could not compare. On the other side, Di Beichen just stared indifferently at Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang studied for an entire night, and he also accompanied Bailey Hongzhuang for an entire night. Although he could not help Bailey Hongzhuang in the study of toxins, at least he would not let Bailey Hongzhuang be alone. Xiao He and Xiao Bai looked at each other. They were more and more satisfied with Di Beichen. When night fell again, Bailey Hongzhuang's expressionless face suddenly curved into a bright smile. Di Beichen noticed it for the first time, and suddenly a smile appeared in his eyes. I've studied it. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Chapter 460. With Bailey Hongzhuang's voice falling, everyone's eyes were fixed on Bailey Hongzhuang. Have you studied it? Everyone asked in unison. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. The smile on her lips was full of confidence and certainty. After taking this detoxification pill, we will be able to pass through this layer of miasma. Everyone's eyes showed joy. This miasma was their biggest problem. If they could not be afraid of this miasma, then it would be much more convenient for them to complete this task. Bailey Hongzhuang, you should rest first. We will talk about it tomorrow. Lu Huayin said with concern. Bailey Hongzhuang's high-intensity research had caused great mental damage, and she needed a good rest to make up for it. What Teacher Lu said is right. You should rest first. Fu Hongbo also said. He was also very clear about Bailey Hongzhuang's current situation. This was completely based on her excitement. Once this momentum passed, Bailey Hongzhuang would be very tired. Xia Jiqing and the others also agreed. They were also very worried about Bailey Hongzhuang. Looking at the concern in everyone's eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was warm, and she immediately smiled and said, "Okay." After relaxing, Bailey Hongzhuang found that she was indeed very tired. There was an empty pain in her head. It was obvious that the mental damage was serious. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly leaned against the tree. Just as she was about to rest, Di Beichen put a pill into her mouth. Turning her head, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen strangely and asked silently, "Your mental damage is very serious. You worked so hard to develop the detoxification pill in order to be able to enter the miasma tomorrow. If you don't restore your mental strength, How can you go in tomorrow in your best state? Di Beichen's voice was gentle, and his eyes were full of love and heartache. For the past 2 days and one night, his heart ached when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang working so hard. However, he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was obsessed with developing the antidote pill, so he couldn't stop her. Now he was responsible for taking good care of Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang stared blankly at Di Beichen. She wanted to say something, but she didn't know what to say. The pill melted as soon as it entered her mouth, turning into abundant energy that replenished the spiritual power she lacked. Her originally tired body also became a little more comfortable under the replenishment of this energy. Di Beichen reached out and put Bailey Hongzhuang's head on his shoulder. Have a good rest. Bailey Hongzhuang's body stiffened for a moment, but after hearing Di Beichen's words, she relaxed and finally fell asleep on Di Beichen's shoulder. Not far away, Dongfang Yu looked at this scene and felt an inexplicable pain in his heart. Previously, when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude towards Di Beichen was not like an ordinary wife's attitude towards her husband. He faintly held a glimmer of hope in his heart. Now, it seemed that this glimmer of hope was completely destroyed. Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Baisher's eyes shone with excitement. It seemed that their master and Di Beichen's relationship was getting closer and closer. Di Beichen stared at Bailey Hongzhuang's side profile, and a satisfied smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. His deep eyes were overflowing with tenderness that could not be concealed. He had fallen from the altar for 3 years. He thought that it would be the shame of his life, but he never thought that because of this he would meet Bailey Hongzhuang. Comparing the two, he felt that these 3 years of hard work were worth it. Chapter 461. When Bailey Hongzhuang slowly woke up, she only felt that the original tiredness had dissipated, and she was unusually relaxed. As a doctor, she knew very well how long it would take for her to recover from yesterday's situation. Now that she recovered so quickly, it could be seen that the medicinal pill Di Beichen fed her was of a very high grade. However, as soon as she opened her eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang saw Di Beichen's slightly smiling face. Wifey, hug your husband for the whole night. Have you hugged enough? The teasing voice was teasing and lighthearted. The pampering in Di Beichen's eyes remained unchanged. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly startled, only to find that she was hugging Di Beichen and immediately let go of her hand. With a blush on her pretty face, Bailey Hongzhuang was secretly annoyed. She didn't know why she was hugging Di Beichen after waking up when she was leaning on Di Beichen's shoulder. This was really inexplicable. Wifey, don't be shy. We are husband and wife. It's normal for you to hug me to sleep. Di Beichen winked at Bailey Hongzhuang, very ambiguous. I don't know what happened after I fell asleep. Bailey Hongzhuang explained. I understand. Di Beichen nodded seriously, as if he believed Bailey Hongzhuang's words. However, the more Di Beichen acted like this, the more Bailey Hongzhuang understood that Di Beichen didn't believe her at all and was completely teasing her. Looking away, Bailey Hongzhuang found that everyone was looking at her with a teasing smile, and suddenly her face became more embarrassed. Xia Jiqing came to Bailey Hongzhuang's side and laughed. Hongzhuang, I now feel more and more that you and Di Beichen are a match made in heaven. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Xia Jiqing. I just fell asleep. I don't know why it became like this. It's normal. Husband and wife should be like this. I think your relationship is enviable. Xia Jiqing smiled. You don't know. In order to let you sleep comfortably, Di Beichen has been in the same position since he woke up. I really admire him. Bailey Hongzhuang was a little surprised. She was embarrassed before and didn't pay attention to this matter. Xia Jiqing nodded seriously. Hongzhuang, you don't have to be embarrassed. I think Di Beichen is really good to you. You haven't rested for 2 days and one night in order to develop the detoxification pill, and Di Beichen has been by your side for 2 days and one night, never resting. If there's a man in the world who can treat me like this, I will definitely treat him well. You must cherish him. Xia Jiqing's tone was sincere and serious. As a friend, she was really happy for Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was slightly touched, and she couldn't help but look at Di Beichen not far away. She happened to see Di Beichen smiling at her, as usual. His calm heart suddenly began to beat. Master, you should follow Di Bei-chun, ha. Xiao Hei excitedly echoed. Agreed, agreed. Xiao Bai followed. I also agree. Bai Shi said in a childish voice. Bailey Hongzhuang ignored the three beasts that were jumping happily and turned to look at the crowd. I have developed the detoxification pill. As long as you take it, you can enter the miasma. Then Bailey Hongzhuang distributed the detoxification pill she had made to everyone. Chapter 462. As Lu Huayan's voice fell, everyone's eyes focused on Bailey Hongzhuang. In the past 2 days, they had already felt the horror of this miasma just by listening to the conversations of other cultivators. Many of the cultivators present had various kinds of detoxification pills, but the final result proved that none of their pills could resist this powerful miasma. Now, many cultivators had already given up on entering the miasma. After all, it was not worthwhile to lose their lives for a mystery. I'm very confident in my detoxification pill. Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth curved into a faint smile. Why don't I enter the miasma after taking the detoxification pill? You can go in after I'm sure there's no problem. Bailey Hongzhuang could understand everyone's doubts. After all, this carelessness could cause them to lose their lives here. Others didn't know, but she had full confidence in her medical skills. Although the toxins of the miasma were slightly different, they were all similar. She had already come into contact with them before. This time, it was precisely because she wanted to be 100% safe that she spent so much time. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone's face revealed a bit of awkwardness. It wasn't that they didn't believe in Bailey Hongzhuang, but they really had to be careful about this kind of thing. Seeing this, Dong Fengyu's heart tightened. He only wanted to try it on behalf of Bailey Hongzhuang. However, before Dong Fengyu could say anything, Di Bei-chun had already taken the detoxification pill. How can I let my wife do this kind of thing? Di Bei-chun's mouth curved into an elegant and charming smile, his dark and bright eyes filled with trust. In the next moment, Di Bei-chun directly turned around and walked into the miasma. If there's no problem, I'll let you know. Looking at Di Bei-chun's back as he turned around and left, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes gradually changed. It was as if something in her heart was melting. This man seemed to believe in her no matter when and where. Did he know that once something went wrong, only death would await him? Everyone's expression changed again and again. They felt that Di Bei-chun was too sincere to Bailey Hongzhuang. He was even willing to put his life in Bailey Hongzhuang's hands. Dong Fengyu's expression became even more complicated. He originally thought that Di Bei-chun didn't care enough about Bailey Hongzhuang. Now, it seemed that he had been mistaken. How could a person who was willing to sacrifice his life for Bailey Hongzhuang be indifferent to Bailey Hongzhuang? Just as Di Bei-chun turned around and approached the miasma, a warm and soft hand held him. Di Bei-chun looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in surprise, as if he couldn't believe the situation in front of him. Let's go together. Bailey Hongzhuang tilted her head and looked at Di Bei-chun with a sweet smile. Her smile was as bright as the sun. It was just a simple sentence, but everything was conveyed without words. Di Bei-chun's smile curved into a warm smile. He increased the strength of his hand, tightly holding Bailey Hongzhuang's hand, as if he was never willing to let go. When the surrounding cultivators saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Dong Fengyu's actions, a puzzled look appeared in their eyes. They didn't know what the two were planning to do. As the two gradually approached the miasma, everyone also understood their plan. Chapter 463. They actually want to break into this miasma. They're simply courting death. There are always people in this world who think highly of themselves. So many people have not succeeded. Do you think they can succeed? They just want to die in vain. This couple is so outstanding. If they fall like this, it would be a pity. Everyone is talking about it. The only thing they had in common was that they were all curious about the result of Bailey Hongzhuang entering the miasma. In the past 2 days, Bailey Hongzhuang had been studying the miasma toxins. Although most of the cultivators did not believe that Bailey Hongzhuang could develop a detoxification pill to restrain the miasma, since someone was willing to die first, they were also happy to wait and see. Walking in front of the miasma, Di Bei-chun chuckled and said, "Wife, let's go in." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Okay. The next moment, the two walked into the miasma together. In the blink of an eye, the two disappeared from everyone's sight. After Di Beichun disappeared, Gong Xiaoqing and the others all showed a worried look in their eyes. Hongzhuang will have an accident, right? Xia Jiqing's hands were twisted together. Her eyebrows were full of worry. She was really worried. Just now, she was also ready to go in with Hongzhuang, but Di Beichun's movements were too fast. She felt that this was the moment for Di Beichun to express his feelings. It was not appropriate for her to get involved. I hope not. Bai Junyu's expression was complicated. I believe in Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills. Everyone was silent. Now that things had developed to this point, they could only wait for the result. However, after Bailey Hongzhuang entered, there was no movement for a long time. Even if Xia Jiqing shouted the name of Bailey Hongzhuang loudly, there was still no movement inside. Seeing this, the surrounding cultivators shook their heads. From this situation, they could determine the result. These two people must have died inside. It is impossible for anyone to successfully break into such a terrible miasma. In my opinion, we should all stop trying. Otherwise, we will only lose our lives for nothing. Previously, when I saw Bailey Hongzhuang developing the detoxification pill for such a long time, I thought she was very powerful. How stupid. Hearing their words, Di Beichun and the others couldn't help but have an ugly look on their faces. Their anxious hearts gradually sank. No, Hongzhuang's medical skills are so good. How could there be a problem? Xia Jiqing's pretty face turned pale. She simply couldn't accept this fact. Hongzhuang was the miracle-working doctor of Fengbo country. Even the vice principal could not do anything about the illness, but Hongzhuang had cured it. It could be seen that Hongzhuang's medical skills were superb. Just now, she clearly saw that Hongzhuang was full of confidence, so there shouldn't be any problems. How could this be? Gong Xiaoqing's eyes rippled, and his usually cold face was also dyed with an oppressive color. In this miasma, you can't even see your 5 fingers. Maybe there are other unknown dangers in addition to the miasma. Gong Xiaoqing said solemnly. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbao's hearts were equally heavy. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were their most promising students. Just when everyone's mood sank to the bottom, suddenly there was a sound in the miasma. Immediately afterward, a fiery red light rose into the sky, attracting everyone's attention. Chapter 464. Not for other reasons, but because this fiery red light was the signal of their college. Xia Jiqing's eyes instantly bloomed with a strong brilliance, and she couldn't help but cheer. I knew that Hongzhuang and the others would be fine. Yes, fortunately they are fine, haha. Bai Junyu laughed, his eyes full of relief and joy. Dongfang Yu's originally red eyes slowly returned to normal at this moment, and a happy smile once again appeared in his peach blossom eyes. Fortunately, he muttered to himself. Fortunately, she was fine. Even if he already knew that it was impossible between him and Bailey Hongzhuang, he still hoped to see her often. When he thought of her disappearing from his sight forever, his heart almost stopped breathing. Gong Xiaoqing was still silent, but there was a trace of comfort in his cold eyes. It's great that they are fine. Lu Huayan breathed a sigh of relief. As a mentor, it was already extremely wrong for him to let Bailey Hongzhuang and Xia Jiqing risk their lives. At this moment, knowing that the two were safe, the guilt in his heart was also a bit better. Since Hongzhuang has already sent us a message, let's not delay any longer and go straight in, Xia Jiqing quickly said. She had been here, facing this white miasma for a long time, and now that she could finally pass through this layer of miasma, she had long been impatient. Let's go, Fu Hongba said with a smile. After seeing the fiery red signal, the surrounding cultivators looked as if they had seen a ghost. So far, it was unknown how many cultivators had tried to go in, but in the end, none of them had come out. Who would have thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and Xia Jiqing would be able to release a signal flare after going in? So, didn't it mean that Bailey Hongzhuang had really developed a detoxification pill to deal with the miasma? At the thought of this, everyone's eyes flashed with a bright light. Looking at Di Beichen and Xia Jiqing's eyes were like a cat seeing a mouse, shining brightly. Lu Huayin and Fu Hongbo almost immediately had a premonition that things were not good. Now, the most attractive thing was the detoxification pill left by Bailey Hongzhuang. These cultivators would definitely rush directly. Even though they were not weak, they had no chance of winning against such a terrifying number of cultivators. Almost as soon as he realized the danger, Lu Huayin hurriedly said, "Let's go." The extremely nervous words exploded in the ears of Xia Jiqing and the others. Everyone was shocked and quickly rushed towards the miasma not far away. This miasma was a deadly poison in the eyes of others, but in their eyes, it was their protective amulet. Once they entered the miasma, these people did not dare to act recklessly. "Catch them!" Someone shouted, and all the cultivators rushed forward with bloodshot eyes. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. Xia Jiqing and the others pushed their speed to the extreme and rushed into the miasma without hesitation. Lu Huayin and Fu Hongbo walked at the back of the team, covering Xia Jiqing and the others as they quickly entered the miasma. Ding, ding, ding. When the sound of metal clashing sounded, Xia Jiqing and the others finally succeeded in entering the miasma. The white miasma was like a fog that blocked everyone's line of sight. If not for the fact that everyone was gathered together, they wouldn't even be able to see each other's faces. Chapter 465. Everyone's face changed slightly, and they turned their heads to help the two mentors. "Everyone, don't worry. The two mentors are strong, so they should be fine." Gong Shaoqing comforted everyone, and his cold face was full of calmness. They had already rushed into the miasma, and he believed that the two mentors would be able to escape unscathed. Now all the cultivators must be gathered outside the miasma, and once they rushed out, it would be more dangerous. Everyone calmed down after hearing this. Gong Shaoqing's experience could be said to be the most abundant among them. Indeed, with their strength, they would not be able to help. On the contrary, they might drag the two mentors down. Just as everyone was waiting, Lu Huayin and Fu Hongbo rushed in. "How is everyone?" Lu Huayin asked. "Mentor, we are fine. How are you?" Lu Qingyue asked with concern. Fu Hongbo waved his hand. "Since everyone is fine, let's go in." After Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen walked in the miasma forest together, she found that Di Beichen did not hesitate from beginning to end, as if he was not walking into the poisonous miasma forest, but his own back garden. "Wife, this is the first time you have held your husband's hand." Di Beichen's mouth was filled with a happy and proud smile, and he stared at Bailey Hongzhuang with a teasing smile. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's face turned red. Shouldn't this guy be worried about his life at this time? Why is he focusing on the wrong thing? She did not know where she got the courage to hold Di Beichen's hand. At this moment, the two were alone, and the atmosphere was somewhat ambiguous. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately planned to let go of Di Beichen's hand. However, Di Beichen seemed to have already guessed Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts and tightly held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand, not giving her a chance to escape. "Since you're holding my hand, then you can't let go." Di Beichen's eyes were filled with a deep smile, but his dark eyes were filled with a serious light. Bailey Hongzhuang looked up at Di Beichen, and the corner of her mouth suddenly raised into a smile. Different from before, Bailey Hongzhuang just quietly stared at Di Beichen. She suddenly felt that it was great that Di Beichen accompanied her like this. "Let's go." Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Di Beichen's eyes lit up, and the curve of his mouth gradually widened, exuding heartfelt joy. "Okay, should I fire the signal flare now?" Di Beichen raised his eyebrows and asked. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly. "We just came in not too long ago. It will take a little longer to determine the effect. Let's fire it later." Di Beichen smiled faintly. "You're right. Let's go and take a look first." As Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang gradually went deeper, Bailey Hongzhuang realized that the miasma covered an extraordinarily large area. It was like a huge forest, and the area was much larger than what everyone had estimated. The two of them sped up. They realized that there were no other dangers in the miasma forest other than the miasma. At this full speed, the two of them were moving at an extremely fast speed. Master, we're getting closer to that familiar aura. Baisher's voice rang in Bailey Hongzhuang's heart. Is this aura in the center of the miasma forest? Chapter 466. Seeing how certain Baisher was, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but slow down. The closer they were to the center, the more careful they had to be. After all, no one knew what was going on inside. It was even possible that they would be attacked by the monstrous beasts as soon as they entered. Roar! An earth-shattering roar was heard. The monstrous beast had clearly sensed Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiaohei's approach. Its roar had clearly become agitated and restless. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun looked at each other. A trace of seriousness flashed across their eyes. Master, that monstrous beast should have been confined. Xiaobai slowly spoke up. Confined? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. If that's the case, this monstrous beast is very likely to be the guardian beast of the ruins. Looking at the situation, Bailey Hongzhuang was even more certain that there was an ancient ruin in the miasma. A guardian beast was not something that could be found in an ordinary ruin. It seemed that they had really found a treasure. Xiaohei nodded. It's very likely. I can faintly sense a powerful fluctuation. It should be the fluctuation of a restrictive spell. Xiaohei and Xiaobai were no strangers to ancient ruins. They had experienced a long time. It was very difficult for ordinary people to see ancient ruins. However, it was not a big deal for them to go into closed-door cultivation. The miasma in front of us is getting fainter, Di Beichun slowly said. It seems that it's just as we expected. There is no miasma in the middle of this miasma forest. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a smile. Her pretty face was filled with confidence. Finally, as the miasma completely disappeared from their sight, they saw a huge open space. It was as big as a small city. The trees and vegetation that grew in this area had all fallen to the ground. Something was faintly visible underground. Even someone as calm as Di Beichun could not help but be pleasantly surprised when he saw the situation in front of him. Looks like it really is an ancient ruin. Di Beichun sighed. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. If not for the sudden appearance of the demonic beast tide, I'm afraid that this ruin would not have been revealed. In my opinion, this ruin is gradually emerging from the ground. Before tomorrow, this ruin will completely appear. It is precisely because of the appearance of the ruins that the miasma outside is constantly spreading outwards. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with understanding. When she saw this scene, she already understood all the facts. Di Beichun looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with astonishment and amazement in his eyes. Even for him, he had only heard about the ancient ruins before, but this was the first time he had seen one. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was so calm, as if she had already seen this before. She was not surprised at all. Logically speaking, with Bailey Hongzhuang's background, it should be impossible for her to have seen it before. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's performance was completely different. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang showed her medical skills, he felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's background was extraordinary. Now, it seemed that he had still underestimated her. Bailey Hongzhuang noticed Di Beichun's expression and guessed Di Beichun's thoughts. She did not intend to hide it. Because these things would be exposed sooner or later, it was useless to hide it now. Chapter 467. Seeing that it would take some time for the ruins to fully appear, Bailey Hongzhuang and Fu Huiyin closed their eyes and began to adjust their breathing. Only then would they be able to enter the ruins in their best condition when the ruins appeared. Hongzhuang, I finally found you. Not long after, Xia Zhiqing's surprised voice suddenly came from behind, and in a flash, she appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. You're finally here. Lu Huiyin and Fu Hongbo's gazes fell on the cracked ground that seemed to have a foreign object protruding from it. Their faces were simultaneously covered with shock. It seems that our guess is right. Lu Huiyin slowly said, I didn't expect that there would be ancient ruins in the Luoyin Mountains. Fu Hongbo's eyes showed a little joy. Usually, once the ancient ruins appear, there will be many forces fighting for it. Thanks to the existence of this miasma, it has not been discovered. The mercenary trade union released this blue task that has attracted a lot of attention. Although most people can't guess the result, the old guys of those forces are experienced and knowledgeable. Maybe they have already seen the clues. Listening to this, Lu Huaiyan's face changed a bit. Indeed, the old guys of those forces could not be judged by common sense. We are always the first to enter the miasma. Looking at this, the ruins will completely appear tomorrow. Lu Huaiyan and Fu Hongbo were mentors. Although they were experienced and knowledgeable, it was undoubtedly the first time they had seen a real ruin. This kind of inheritance left by an ancient powerhouse, no matter who it was, could not be ignored. Maybe as long as they got an opportunity, their lives would have a completely different change. Hearing the words ancient ruins, Bai Junyu and the others were completely stunned. This kind of thing that was almost a legend for them was actually happening in front of them? This is an ancient ruin? Xia Jiqing's expression was sluggish. She only felt as if she had been hit by a huge pie. It was her first time coming to the Luoyun mountain range, and she had encountered such a good thing. Her luck was too good. Bai Junyu's eyes flashed with an incredible color. I never dreamed that one day I would see an ancient ruin. If I can get a treasure from it, it would be a big deal. Cui Haoyan and Gong Shaoqing's eyes flashed with a strong fiery light. This ruin was exuding an unparalleled attraction. Master, things have changed. White Yi's originally excited eyes were suddenly filled with a trace of seriousness. I can feel several auras rapidly approaching this place. As soon as he said that, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression changed. Is the other party's aura strong? I feel that these auras belong to young people, and not those old monsters who have cultivated for many years. Xiaobai thought for a moment and said seriously. Looks like he's a junior from some power. The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth curled into a smile. She was not unfamiliar with this situation. The ancient ruins was a place where many forces nurtured their younger generation. However, Bailey Hongzhuang did not notice the slight change in Di Beichen's expression when these auras approached. Haha, I didn't expect that an ancient ruin would appear in this remote falling cloud mountain range. Chapter 468. Your news is really fast. As soon as I receive a news, I rush to the Luoyun mountain range. I didn't expect to arrive with you. Yanling Xian's face showed some regret and depression, but from the confidence in his eyebrows, it could still be seen that he didn't care too much about this matter. Such important news, how can we not know? A light and sweet female voice sounded. You want to take advantage of everyone, but it's not so easy. Jian, I don't like what you said. Since everyone is here, it's up to their own abilities. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked up and saw 4 young cultivators slowly descending from the air. The 4 young cultivators, 2 men and 2 women, were all dressed in luxurious brocade clothes. Their young faces were filled with the same pride and confidence. As the outstanding children of a cultivation family, they have been superior since birth. This pride and self-confidence have long been integrated into their bones with their growth. The 4 of them obviously did not think that there would be other cultivators in the middle of the miasma forest. At this moment, they could not help but be stunned. Someone came before us. Yanling Xian's eyes flashed with astonishment. This was completely beyond his expectations. Jian was also surprised to see Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. It was reasonable to say that it was impossible for ordinary cultivators to pass through such a thick miasma. Who are they? How come I have never seen them before? Jian looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others in confusion. It was reasonable to say that if they could pass through such a thick miasma, it could be seen that their background was not weak. However, most of the young people with tyrannical backgrounds had a certain understanding of them, but these people in front of them had no impression at all. Suddenly, Jian's eyes locked on Di Beichen. Her slightly surprised eyes were instantly stained with shock. Di Gongzi? Yanling Xian and the others were thinking about the identity of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. After hearing Jian's words, they immediately looked at Di Beichen behind the crowd. After confirming the identity of Di Beichen, Jian immediately came over her pretty face faintly showing some joy. Di Gongzi, why are you here? Seeing Jian-er's attitude, Xia Zhiqing and the others also turned their surprised eyes to Di Beichen. Although they did not know the identity of Jian-er from the content of their conversation, it could be concluded that their identity and background were not simple. Since they knew Di Beichen, it was obvious that Di Beichen's identity was not simple. I'm cultivating at the Azure Water School. Di Beichen did not treat Jian differently because of her identity. His look was still calm and natural. However, Yin Xian and the others listened to Di Beichen's words as if they had heard a fantasy story. What kind of joke was this? With Di Beichen's identity, he was actually cultivating at the Kanglan school? If they didn't see that other people's expressions were the same as their own, they only thought that they had heard wrong. With Di Beichen's identity and background, there was no need for him to cultivate at the Azure Water School. It was a complete waste of time. Di Gongzi, I am Yin Xian of the Yin family. Yin Xian walked to the side of Di Beichen. The proud look on his handsome face was completely restrained in front of Di Beichen. Obviously, in his heart, Di Beichen's position was quite high. Chapter 469. Wow, what is the identity of Di Beichen? Xia Zhiqing approached Bai Junyu and whispered. Bai Junyu's face showed a bit of emotion. I don't know, but his background must not be simple. Gong Shaoqing and the others were also silent. The change in Yin Xian's attitude could be seen. Previously, Yin Xian was obviously very disdainful of them, but after seeing Di Beichen, they did not have the slightest disdain. On the contrary, they became very respectful. Xia Zhiqing and the others did not know the identity of Yin Xian and the others, but Lu Huayin and Fu Hongbo had a certain understanding. Yin Xian was an outstanding child of the Yin family. This cultivation family was not an ordinary cultivation family, but a real behemoth. The status of Songlan College in this area was very good, but the Yin family had a certain status in the entire Shengxian continent. It could be seen how big the gap between the two was. Not only Yin Xian, but the identity of Ji Yun-er and the others were also extraordinary. It seemed that the identity of Di Beichen was much higher than they thought. Previously, they had already determined that the reason why Di Beichen came to Songlan College was entirely for Bailey Hongzhuang. Now it seemed that the position of Bailey Hongzhuang in Di Beichen's mind was far more important than they thought. With the background of Di Beichen, if he wanted to come to Songlan College to cultivate, they were afraid that he would have to eliminate all opposition. When they thought of this, they felt that it was too strange. Bailey Hongzhuang was the daughter of the general's house. Her identity was not bad, but compared with Di Beichen, it was not on the same level. The two of them were separated by such a big gap, and Di Beichen seemed to prefer to stick to Bailey Hongzhuang. At this moment, Jin also noticed Bailey Hongzhuang next to Di Beichen, and her eyes could not help but reveal a strange color. Even though she was a girl, she couldn't help but be stunned when she saw Bailey Hongzhuang. Moreover, from the position where Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were standing, it could be seen that the two were very close. Why didn't she know that Di Beichen was so intimate with a woman? Young Master Di, after hearing that you have returned to the sect, I have always wanted to see you. However, when I wanted to go, I heard that you were not in the sect. I never thought that I would actually be able to see you today. This is really fate. Ji Yun-er's eyes flashed with bright expectations, and there was a hint of flattery and intimacy in her expression. Ji Yun-er could not help but throw a disdainful look at Bailey Hongzhuang. How could a student of Kanglan College be worthy of Di Beichen? At this moment, everyone suddenly understood the meaning of Ji Yun-er. They were afraid that Ji Yun was quite fond of Di Beichen. Looking at this attitude, it was obvious that it was already very obvious. Everyone is very busy on weekdays, so there's no need. Unlike Ji Yun-er's enthusiasm, Di Beichen did not have the slightest joy because of Ji Yun-er's performance. On the contrary, there was a trace of indifference in his eyes. Listening to Di Beichen's words, Ji Yun-er's face was a little embarrassed, but it was covered up by her in an instant. Master, this woman really ate the guts of a leopard. She dares to steal your man. Xiao He said angrily. Of all things, She dares to steal the master's man. This is absolutely not allowed. Chapter 470. What a joke. It was not easy for their master to get closer to Di Baichun, and now this guy who came out of nowhere wanted to steal their master's corner. Did he really think that the black and white double demons were useless? Seeing Xiao He and Xiao Bai anxiously stomping their feet, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with a warm smile. Since these two little guys recognized her as their master, they had always been wholeheartedly devoted to her. Once something happened, these two guys were more anxious than her, although she sometimes pretended to dislike them. But with these three beasts by her side, she never felt lonely. Don't worry, Bailey Hongzhuang looked calm and natural. In terms of feelings, she always thought that what was hers was hers. If others could easily snatch it away, then it was not what she wanted. What's more, she was very confident in Di Baichun. It's okay. Ji Yuner smiled. Di Gongzi, when will you return to the sect? With Ji Yuner's voice falling, the eyes of Yinling Xian and the other two flashed with curiosity. Even among their group of proud sons of heaven, Di Baichun was absolutely at the top. If they could be on good terms with Di Baichun, it would naturally be excellent. When my wife comes back with me, I will go back. Di Baichun responded. As soon as these words came out, Ji Yuner, Yinling Xian, Linny Ro, and Huang Fu Hui all widened their eyes and looked at Di Baichun incredulously. What do they hear? Di Baichun actually had a wife? During this time, they had never heard of Di Baichun having a wife. For a long time, Di Baichun was not very interested in women. With his status, it was unknown how many women would throw themselves into his arms. However, Di Baichun had always been blunt and even too lazy to be perfunctory with the other party. Because of this, there were even rumors that Di Baichun did not like women. However, with the appearance of Han Shilling by Di Baichun's side, the rumors gradually faded. Cultivators who were slightly familiar with Di Baichun still knew that the relationship between Di Baichun and Han Shilling was not what the outside world had imagined. It could be assumed that it was a love affair. However, no one would have thought that Di Baichun already had a wife. This was like a huge bomb that scared all of them. At this moment, Ji Yuner could no longer pretend to be indifferent. She and Di Baichun were quite familiar with each other. Because the two sects had always been on good terms, she often had the opportunity to see Di Baichun. In the past, she had always regarded Di Baichun as the object of her admiration. After all, with Di Baichun's age, he could have such strength and was a top young talent. He was really the ideal person in her mind. Unexpectedly, 3 years ago, Di Baichun suddenly became a disabled person. Since then, he had plummeted and did not even continue to stay in the sect. At that time, although she felt sorry, she did not say anything. A cultivator with disabled legs was doomed to not be able to achieve much in the future. However, not long ago, Di Baichun suddenly appeared. Not only did he not have the slightest decadence, on the contrary, his strength was not small. As soon as he returned to the sect, Di Baichun resolutely solved all the problems. He solved all the obstacles and once again ascended to his previous position. Chapter 471. When Di Baichun became disabled and left the sect, it was not known how many people sneered and ridiculed him. After all, Di Baichun had been standing at the top of the pyramid of young cultivators for many years. How many people were envious and jealous? After seeing Di Baichun become a disabled waste, everyone felt a burst of joy. However, now the return of Di Baichun was no different from giving everyone a loud slap in the face. In 3 years, he not only did not become a waste, on the contrary, he became more outstanding. Ji Yuner only felt that today's Di Baichun was more charming and calm than before. Every move of his was tightly affecting her heart. However, after not seeing him for 3 years, Di Baichun actually had a wife? Di Gongzi, I don't know who your wife is. Ji Yuner asked with a smile. Not only Ji Yuner, but the three of them were also very concerned about this answer. This was a big news, and they believed that this news was definitely not something that the three of them did not know. Listening to Ji Yuner's question, Xia Zhiqing could not help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was next to Di Baichun. Looking at the eyes of Xia Zhiqing and the others, The eyes of Ji and and the other three could not help but fall on Bailey Hongzhuang. Would it be the one next to Di Beichen? Just as Ji and the other three were secretly guessing, Di Beichen had put his hand on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder. "She is my wife." Di Beichen's expression was natural and proud. He had always been very proud of his wife. Ji and the other three's mouths were slightly open, and their expressions were a bit petrified. Although they had already guessed it, they still felt incredible about this result. Yan Lingxian and Huang Fu Hui's eyes flashed with amazement. They had already noticed Bailey Hongzhuang earlier. Such a beauty! Even they had never seen it before. It was not an exaggeration to describe her as a stunning beauty. If such a beauty appeared in front of them, even if she did not have any background, they would still want to marry her. However, without background and family, she was destined to not be their official wife. They believed that Di Beichen was definitely not someone who would be bewitched by beauty. Could it be that this beauty was also an extraordinary person? Di Gongzi, I don't know which family this girl is from. Ji Yun asked tentatively. Growing up in a sect, she knew very well that there were some people she couldn't afford to offend. Therefore, before she wanted to do anything, the most important thing was to figure out the other party's identity. Otherwise, if she offended someone she couldn't afford to offend, she would be the one to suffer. "She's not from a cultivation family," Di Beichen said calmly. "Oh." Ji Yun raised an eyebrow and showed a look of doubt. "I have never heard of any sect that has Bailey Hongzhuang." Yan Lingxian and the other two looked at each other. Among the younger generation, as long as there were outstanding people, they would have heard of them. But regarding the name Bailey Hongzhuang, they were really unfamiliar with it. "I am just a student of Tsanglan College," Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. From Ji Yun's performance in this short period of time, she already knew Ji Yun's thoughts. Since they all wanted to know her identity, she didn't mind telling them directly. With Bailey Hongzhuang's voice falling, the eyes of Ji Yun and the other three changed a bit. Their hearts were also full of thoughts. They only suspected that Bailey Hongzhuang was lying to them. Chapter 472. Di Gongzi, she is just a commoner. How can you marry her as your wife? Ji Yun chuckled and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Her eyes had changed from cautious doubts to ridicule and disdain. She was originally worried that Bailey Hongzhuang had a great family background. She did not expect that she was just a grassroots person and could not pose a threat to her at all. This kind of woman, even if Di Beichen really liked her, it was only because of her beauty. She could not be Di Beichen's wife. As long as she was willing, she could directly kill Bailey Hongzhuang, and Di Beichen would still be single. Xia Zhiqing frowned. Since the appearance of Ji Yun, she had been trying to get closer to Di Beichen. She was already very uncomfortable just looking at it. Now Ji Yun dared to look down on Hongzhuang? It was too much. Hongzhuang is not a commoner. She is the daughter of the general's mansion. Xia Zhiqing stood up and said. However, the smile on Ji Yun's face was deeper and even dyed with a touch of irony. The daughter of the general's mansion? Haha, what is the difference between having this identity and not having it? She is still a lowly commoner. Ji Yun's face was full of arrogance. In the secular world, the daughter of the general's mansion may be a great existence, but in their eyes, even the emperor was nothing. What are you talking about? Xia Zhiqing was furious. You are the lowly one. The next moment, Ji Yun's face suddenly became gloomy, and her eyes were full of anger and killing intent. What did you say? Feeling the killing intent of Ji Yun, Xia Zhiqing's face also changed a bit. She knew very well that with her background, she could not be compared with Ji Yun. It was even possible that just a word from her could bring infinite disaster to her family. However, Xia Zhiqing's eyes finally became firm. How could she let Ji Yun insult Hongzhuang? Just as Xia Zhiqing was about to speak, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said, So what if I'm a commoner? Besides relying on your family background, I'm afraid you don't have any ability, right? Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly. Her beautiful face did not show the slightest tension because of Ji Yun's words. She even had some contempt for Ji Yun. She was just a young lady from an aristocratic family. In her previous life, she had seen so many of them and had been taught a lesson by her. How could she be afraid of her? Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang dared to take the initiative to attack, Ji Yun-er's eyes were gloomy, and the light of resentment and ruthlessness was constantly alternating. Sour grapes. Just from the moment I was born, I was destined to be stronger than you in this lifetime. Yin Lingxian and the other two did not say a word. They all understood that Ji Yun had always been interested in Di Beichen. What's more, after knowing the identity of Bailey Hongzhuang, they also understood that Bailey Hongzhuang was just a flash in the pan. With Ji Yun-er's means, it would not be long before Bailey Hongzhuang completely disappeared from this world. This Ji Yun-er is too much. Xia Zhiqing couldn't help but stomp her feet. She had seen a lot of hateful women, but this Ji Yun-er in front of her was the first. Bai Junyu patted Xia Zhiqing's shoulder and comforted her. Don't worry, Bailey Hongzhuang is not a person who can be bullied. What's more, Di Beichen will not let Bailey Hongzhuang be bullied. Chapter 473. Lu Huaiyin and Fu Hongbo frowned slightly. This Ji Yun-er's words were full of thorns, which was really unpleasant. However, now was obviously a drama of two women competing for a man. It seemed inappropriate for the two of them to get involved. Lu Qinyu's eyes were very complicated. From the words of the two mentors, she had already understood the identity of Yin Lingxian and Ji Yun-er. As an extremely talented alchemist, her range of contact was much wider than that of ordinary cultivators. Therefore, she knew more about the level Di Beichen was at. It was reasonable to say that it was impossible for a young talent of that level to have any anxiety in their lives. However, Di Beichen was so determined to be with Bailey Hongzhuang. Even when he mentioned Bailey Hongzhuang, there was a trace of pride. This was something that many men could not do. As a woman, she was very sensitive to her feelings. From Ji Yun-er's performance, it could be seen that Ji Yun-er was very fond of Di Beichen. However, Di Beichen had no interest in Ji Yun-er, who had an excellent background. On the contrary, he followed Bailey Hongzhuang every day. As soon as she thought of this, there was an indescribable envy in her heart. Gong Shaoqing and Dong Fangyu looked at each other, and their eyes showed extreme disgust for Ji Yun. This kind of woman, even if all the women in the world died, they would not like Ji Yun-er. Di Beichen's vision was really excellent. Through this scene, they had already understood the unequal status between Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. However, they did not feel that Bailey Hongzhuang was not worthy of Di Beichen. On the contrary, the ability that Bailey Hongzhuang had shown so far made it impossible to believe that she was just an ordinary young lady of the general's mansion. Just the fact that Bailey Hongzhuang possessed superb medical skills and the long-lost vibrating needle technique. Once the news of this spread out, she would have become a VIP that many forces would fight over. The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. Her exquisite and beautiful face outlined an enchanting smile. She suddenly placed a hand on Di Beichen's shoulder and leaned her entire body against Di Beichen. Sour grapes. You're absolutely right about that. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and winked. She had always been the one to laugh at others. If Ji Yun-er wanted to humiliate her, she should go back and cultivate for hundreds of years. Sure enough, with Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Ji Yun-er's face was ugly to the extreme. The same sentence from Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth was even more sarcastic, but she did not know what to say to refute it. Di Beichen's eyes flashed with extreme brilliance. His wife was really extraordinary. Even in the face of Ji Yun-er, she did not feel the slightest pressure. The most important thing was that this was the first time his wife had made such an ambiguous posture. It was all thanks to Ji Yun-er. You are shameless, Ji Yun said angrily. Bailey Hongzhuang's head was slightly bent, her delicate chin gradually raised. The smile on her pretty face was still strong, but her dark eyes were flashing with a cold light. I'm shameless. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Miss Ji's shamelessness really makes me admire you. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly stepped forward, closing the distance between her and Ji Yun-er, and her voice became sharper and more ruthless. Chapter 474. I didn't know that the cultivation families cultivated such excellent children. In the last sentence, the irony in Bailey Hongzhuang's words almost reached the extreme. Even the arrogant Ji Yun-er's face was a little red, because she was not in the right at all. Bai Junyu and the others were secretly speechless. When it came to eloquence, Bailey Hongzhuang could be said to be the best. So far, they have never seen Bailey Hongzhuang suffer a loss in words. Ji Yun really dug a hole for herself. Yin Lingxian and the other two were also happy to watch a good show. Although they were familiar with Ji Yun, they were all outstanding children of various families. There was a lot of competition between them, and their relationship was naturally not very good. If Ji Yun really got together with Di Beichen as she wished, that was what they should be worried about. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang being together had no conflict of interest with them. Why should they make things unpleasant with Di Beichen? Ji Yun has always been sharp-tongued. I didn't expect that this time she would be defeated. It's really interesting. Lin Ero chuckled. She and Ji Yun had completely different personalities. Compared with Ji Yun-er's sharp edge, she preferred to converge her edge. Now that she saw Ji Yun-er being defeated, she felt very happy. Yin Lingxian smiled and nodded. I think this Bailey Hongzhuang is not an ordinary person. Otherwise, how could she have the courage to clash with Ji Yun like this? Anyway, the ancient ruins have not come out yet. I don't mind watching a good show. Huangfu Hui's hands were around his chest. His posture was chic and indifferent. Ji Yun-er's eyes were full of resentment. This Bailey Hongzhuang, she had already remembered. After the end of this experience, she would definitely take Bailey Hongzhuang's life. You are not worthy of being Di Gongzi's wife. Ji Yun-er raised her tone. Her face was full of anger. I don't deserve it. Do you deserve it? Compared with Ji Yun-er's ferocious face, Bailey Hongzhuang was always calm. Even if Ji Yun-er's words were too much, she could still respond calmly. Looking at the emotional contrast between the two, everyone could not help but secretly sigh. Bailey Hongzhuang's psychological quality was much stronger than Ji Yun-er's. If it was any other woman facing such provocation, they would have already been unable to bear it, but Bailey Hongzhuang did not put her in her eyes at all. From the looks of it, this Bailey Hongzhuang was indeed different from other women. Miss Ji, let me give you a piece of advice. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Her youthful and harmless appearance seemed to be giving a kind reminder. If a woman keeps rushing, then she's worthless. As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned. After reacting, even Yin Lingxian couldn't help but want to give Bailey Hongzhuang a thumbs up. Awesome. It's really awesome. The young lady of the dignified cultivation family. Now someone said that she was worthless. This was the first time that Ji Yun had met someone like this. However, he felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's words were very reasonable. Xia Zhiqing couldn't help but chuckle. Hongzhuang's words were really great. This counterattack was simply great. What a domineering slap in the face. She wanted to see what Ji Yun could say.